Yeah.
Committee of the Whole meeting, roll call, please.
Member Cassiano? Present. Member Capola?
Present.
Member Dugan?
Present.
Member Gately?
Present.
Member Magnolia?
Present.
Member Pena?
Present.
Mayor Nicholson?
Present. We are here for the interview for legal services, and the final candidate that we are interviewing is going to be joining us shortly.
Hello, good evening.
Slippery.
Good evening, welcome, and thank you for coming and for your interest in this position. I'm Jared Nicholson. I'm the mayor and chair of the school committee, and we're looking forward to discussing the school committee council position with you this evening. Thank you again for coming. My colleagues on the school committee will each be sharing a question, and then at the end of the interview of the questions, we'll have time if there's any other thoughts or comments that you'd like to share.
Terrific.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, I have the first question for you. Why do you think that you or your firm would be a good fit to provide legal advice and counsel to the school committee of the Lynn Public Schools?
Sure. So I'm Tom McEnany. This is my colleague Darren Klein, managing attorney of the firm Lauren Goldberg. So thank you first for having us here tonight and give us the opportunity to meet with you. So I think we'd be a really good fit. I think we're in a unique position to provide legal services to the school district for two reasons. Number one, this is really what we do. 98% of the clients that we have are public sector clients. We represent cities and towns, school districts, housing authorities, water and sewer commissions, water districts, and basically any type of local governmental entity that you can think of. We have a depth and wealth of experience dealing with municipal, school, and other public sector issues. We have a focus on, we do public records, open meeting law, building construction, MSBA, school issues, basically anything that you will come across. And that provides us in a really unique position for a couple of reasons. Number one is that we can really eliminate the need for you to ever go to outside counsel, which is often costly and expensive, because we have expertise in-house. We have 46 attorneys at the firm. Most of them have been with us for a long time and are senior level attorneys that cover all areas. We have experts in labor and employment, contracts, procurement, school issues, general municipal governance type issues, municipal finance, MSBA, data security issues, COVID-19, basically anything that you would kind of come across, real estate, land use, really pretty much every aspect of law that touches upon the public sector. And that will not only provide you with the ability to stay in-house to avoid those outside legal costs that are often quite expensive, it also allows you to draw on the breadth and depth of experience of the expertise that we have. We deal with municipalities of all sizes, all across the state, from Nantucket, from, as we often say, from Williamstown to Provincetown. We represent cities, towns, school districts, and other municipal and public sector entities in every county in the Commonwealth. And well, we're the only firm that can say that. And what really makes us unique here with respect to the Lynn Public Schools is our connection to the community. I was born and raised in Lynn. I know some of you, and some of you probably know me or recognize my name. I grew up here. I have a strong connection to the community still. I live locally. I'm a board member for the Friendly Knights, which organization which I'm sure many of you are familiar with. I was a former board member for the Lynn YMCA, the Lynn Museum for a number of years. We volunteer as a family at my brother's table a couple times a month doing dinner bags and lunch bags. And so I have a strong connection to the community. I understand the city. I know a lot of the players who are involved, and I understand the challenges and issues that you face. The way we structure our services is we use a primary contact with a backup plan. And so the way we would deliver services here for the school department is I would serve as the primary contact, handling most of the general issues that come in the door, any kind of procurement, public records, open meeting law, those sorts of things. If something that I wouldn't typically handle, I would oversee and make sure that it goes to the right person who is best able to provide those services for you. Darren Klein, who also has strong connections to the city as well, which he'll tell you about, would serve as the backup attorney and really the primary attorney for labor and employment issues. That's Darren's expertise. He chairs the firm's education and labor and employment practice groups. So he's in a great position to be able to provide services here, and I think he can tell you a little bit more about his connections here in the city as well.
Thank you, Tom, and thank you to everyone on the school committee and to the mayor for having us tonight. We're honored, and we really do share an affinity and a connection to Lynn, which I'll go into in a second. One thing I just wanted to highlight is, although we have the breadth of the 45 attorneys that Tom talked about covering each area, we deliver those services to you. So you have that big firm depth, but you're not going to deal with 40 attorneys. You're going to deal with Tom and myself, and sometimes probably a third attorney. But we bring you this great big firm service, but in a very small firm feel. You will feel like you have a firm of 2 or 3, even though we have 40 people behind us that can cover any area. If it's not an issue that Tom and I know off the top of our head, or in a rare occasion where both of us have conflicts, there'll be a third person, but you're going to be dealing 90% of the time with 2, maybe 3 attorneys, and that's how we really pride the way we provide our services. I also have a lot of connections in Lynn as well. My wife's family is from Lynn, and my father-in-law owned Paramount Drug, which existed here for about 40 years, and my wife's grandfather started Brotherhood Credit Union, which I'm very proud to say I've been on the board of directors for about 20 years, and Brotherhood Credit Union has been in the city for probably, I think, close to 90 years. I've been told by many citizens in Lynn that my wife's other grandfather, Dr. Morris Kreplick, delivered a baby. At least one member of just about every family in this city was delivered by my grandfather. So we really have a lot of pride in Lynn. I know I also serve on the Anti-Defamation League North Shore Advisory Committee, and I've co-chaired about the last 20 years the Law and Education Day. I always invite as my own personal guests the mayor from the city, the police chief, and the school superintendent, and they have taken me up on those invitations before. Even as a member of the board of directors for Brotherhood Credit Union, you know, we're involved in Girls Inc. in Lynn, and we also provide contributions each year to the Mass Housing Coalition to help pay heat bills for certain citizens in Lynn who need some assistance. So we take a lot of pride in, you know, I know I've always feel very much a kinship with Lynn, you know, through my wife and her family. And you know, one thing Tom didn't mention is both of us live less than 10 minutes from Lynn. I've lived in Salem or Marblehead since 1995. Tom is, as he said, was born and bred in Lynn and now lives in Danvers. So we are a very short phone call and drive away in an emergency. You know, when those arise, and they do arise sometimes, and you know, we not only know that, but we appreciate it, and that's why we really enjoy representing school districts, cities, and towns, because it's the nature of the business that we like, and we want you to feel like you have your own in-house attorney, even though we're part of a much bigger firm.
Thank you. Thank you. Thanks for coming. I'll be asking the second question. Can you tell us about your firm's experience providing legal services to school committees in urban school district and municipalities comparable to Lynn? Can you be specific? You know, we have a very, very large Latino community. We have overcrowding issues, and we have some challenging and unique issues that are coming up. Do you have any experience with that?
So we represent, as far as sort of on the comparable sort of size, we represent a number of cities and a number of housing authorities in comparable to Lynn. We do work, we've been the city solicitor in Leominster for 40 years, 30 years, a very long time. We represent, we do work for New Bedford, Fall River. We do work for Lowell. I've been hired by the Lowell schools as special counsel for certain teacher negotiations that got very complicated. We represent, I'm trying to think some other similar communities. City of Everett, I'm sorry. We do a lot of work for City of Everett as well. We also represent housing authorities, which have a lot of similar issues to you know, in those cities as well, separately from doing the work for the city. As far as school districts, they do face, you know, a lot of different issues than the city of Lynn. But I've been school counsel in Swampscott for the past 10 years. I've been school counsel in Burlington for the past 20 years. I've represented, I mentioned Lowell schools earlier, but I've done work, I was counsel a while back for Stoughton schools and Seekonk schools as well. So, you know, one of the things we do understand that Lynn has its own unique set of issues. And, you know, it's one of the things we really enjoy about what we do is, although there are similar issues, maybe every school district faces a lot of the same issues, but every school district is so unique. And that's why we represent communities of every size and shape. And it's one of the things I think that really, you know, gets us up in the morning, gets us excited about what we do. Because we may know the issues, but how that applies in the city of Lynn is going to be very different, and it's something that we find very exciting. And, you know, we always say that we are not the policymakers. That is all of you, and you've been elected to do that. We want to help you accomplish your policies and accomplish your vision and your mission, and it's really why, you know, every one of us could be representing private companies right now, and they pay more, to be honest, but we've all chosen to stay doing what we're doing because of the passion we have for it.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you. I have the third question. Could you describe your firm's experience providing legal services related to personnel, labor relations, and collective bargaining in public education? Can you just go a little bit deeper? I know you mentioned earlier some of the personnel. And specifically, if you could talk about some of the union relationships that you've had over the years and contract negotiations experiences, it'd be really helpful to see that insight.
So you're going to be very tired of hearing me speak soon, but Tom mentioned I chair our not only our education law group, but our labor and employment group as well. So I've been practicing labor law, public sector labor law in the Commonwealth since 1995. I started working for a union, AFSCME, for about 2.5 years. Have been representing public employers for the past 25. I will say the 2.5 years I spent with the union seems like it was as long as the 25 years I spent representing municipal public employers, but it was so valuable. And I'll say, like, I don't regret, I value every day I spent representing the unions, because one is I really got to learn and appreciate sort of how unions think, what their priorities are, some of the things they do really well, and some of the things that maybe they don't do as well. But it really taught me, too, about the importance of labor relations. It's such a different area than some of the other things that we deal with. Like, if there's a lawsuit for negligence, you settle the case, or you go to trial and the case is over and the parties never see each other again. That's not how labor relations and personnel and collective bargaining works. No matter what happens, no matter how rocky the road gets or how collaborative the effort can be, we are waking up the next day and working with each other. And it's so important. And I think working on both sides has really allowed me to see that dynamic and appreciate it and understand, and shape sort of how you deal with each situation. As far as the breadth of experience we have, I can say I'm not sure there's a firm that represents more public entities in labor and employment than us in the state. I mean, we have done everything. I've negotiated personally, hundreds and hundreds of collective bargaining agreements, every type of unit. For Swampscott and Burlington, I've been involved in probably for Burlington, the last 20 years, teacher negotiations and all the other contracts in between. Same thing in Swampscott for the last 9 or 10 years, previously in Stoughton. As I said, I was brought in to Lowell teacher negotiations previously as sort of a special counsel in addition to their own in-house attorney. They had a very unique health insurance issue that I was sort of brought in for that reason. I have experience both in collaborative bargaining and in traditional bargaining, and often both are used. I mean, even I always say that the collaborative bargaining is so important and such a useful tool to sort of really establish that rapport and partnership with the teachers. But you do sort of get to that point once a lot of the sort of the background issues are worked on. It still often comes down to a couple of maybe more sensitive issues and financial issues, and often it has to switch to a little bit more of a traditional model. We really believe that obviously, I think the style of our firm is we like to consider ourselves very proactive and preventative. We would much rather you call with an issue, especially on the personnel side, where we can, talk to you for a half an hour and hopefully save you 200 hours of work down the road that is expensive, and we understand you have a limited budget. We understand the fiduciary responsibility you have to all your taxpayers. But also the emotion that especially labor and personnel issues involved when it goes to litigation. I mean, it's stressful. So we'd rather save you from all that. But when that doesn't work, we have tons of experience zealously litigating on behalf of our clients. So we've done every type of arbitration there is. We've appeared in front of every administrative agency in every court, including, especially on just about every type of school issue. So there's really nothing on the labor and personnel side that we haven't handled. I know that I've really been involved too with a number of our districts, trying to really promote a diverse working environment and a diverse sort of workforce. because all the obvious advantages that has for the way that, cities, towns, and school districts provide their services, but it's especially beneficial to the students as well. It's just very important. And so I've helped our districts, have policies that help promote and maintain and continue to look at new ways as our world becomes more diverse. It involves more ways we try to have a diverse workforce as well. So I hope I've touched on everything from the labor and employment side of things.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Could you describe your firm's experience providing legal services related to special education, student discipline, and general school law issues?
Sure. I'll let Darren answer the questions with respect to some of the specific experiences that we have. We do some of that. However, you may note in our proposal, what we are planning to do, if you were to retain us to represent the district, is to continue with your current special education counsel, Katie Meinold. So we've had several conversations with her, and she's from what we understand, has a really good working relationship with the school department. She's a really highly regarded lawyer in this area, and so our proposal would be to continue partnering with Katie to provide those services, particularly for the more complicated issues.
So, as far as, a lot of the general school law issues, I mean, we obviously have experience in every area. I've worked on, and our firm has worked on many student privacy issues. This is where I think our background in sort of general municipal law is so helpful, and I feel like it's a real advantage we have over our competitors and some of the services that schools use, because there are issues which I think have traditionally been considered sort of municipal issues, but they play into school districts all the time. Obviously, Tom touched on school construction, but privacy and data breach issues right now are so critical. Public records request, there's a lot of entities, really trying to, I would say, inundate school districts with, massive public records requests. We've handled more public record requests than any firm in this Commonwealth. Conflict of interest. I think, one that's not talked about is municipal finance. It's so important. One thing, we have such an experience and understanding of how the municipal side of government and how the school side of government have to interact, especially on budgetary and financial issues. So we see that whole picture, and it doesn't play into every school issue, but it plays into a lot of school issues. I have been very involved in, more than I'd like to remember, student discipline issues at every level. Obviously, that's a whole different type of sensitivity that is very different than employment issues, but I think very, very unique in its own way. But we've handled every type of student disciplinary issue. And as we talked about, we're very, very sensitive to student privacy rights too, and how that plays into the way that schools are run. As Tom said, we do handle a number of, we do handle and have experience in special education. One thing we didn't really touch on is, we've talked about really some of the places where we've been separately appointed as school counsel, but we handle school law questions every day from our municipal clients as well. And in fact, in many of the small cities and towns that we represent, they don't always have separate school counsel, or at least that's available to them, maybe the budget's used up or whatever the case may be. So we get a lot of questions in those from a lot of our smaller clients as well. We also represent a number of insurance companies who represent most of the cities and towns and school districts in the state. So we get a lot of the litigation for school districts through those insurance counsel, as insurance counsel actually. And a number of those cases have a number of special education issues as well. So we are versed in special education, but we do see the best way to handle your most complicated issues is to kind of continue to use that firm who, we're partnering with as part of this proposal.
And just one last thing that I did want to add as well is that in terms of the litigation work, One of the attorneys who's referenced in the proposal is Deborah Ecker, who's a senior litigator and shareholder at the firm. She is well experienced with respect to civil rights, tort litigation, employment litigation, and if you recognize her name, perhaps it's because she was recently hired by the school department for the purposes of handling an investigation for Lynn Public Schools. So she's also very familiar with you and with the district.
And just one other thing I just want to touch on real quick is in sort of a combination of the last two questions. One thing too that, we really appreciate, although we've negotiated hundreds and hundreds of contracts, there clearly is some unique issues that especially your teachers and administrators negotiations face. And I always say, what's very unique is teachers absolutely deserve and administrators absolutely deserve the respect of being treated as professionals, because they are very professional and they've spent lots of their own money in education becoming professional and then serving your students in such a terrific manner. Yet the collective bargaining process has a lot of sort of traditional labor benefits, and that's always a real sort of, I'd say, conflict that's very unique in teacher negotiations and school administrator negotiations, is we're dealing with very professional employees, but they have a contract that has a lot of traditional labor benefits. And that just creates a very unique tug of war that you have to be very sensitive to. And I also think, and I've spoken on this before, I think one of the major issues facing every community and a major obstacle going forward that we really need to spend a lot of time, sort of figuring out is the teacher's pay scale, because, when you add in sort of the steps and the lanes and the historical increases in the advancement in degrees, very often the increases are far beyond the 2.5%. The 2.5% that most cities and towns are limited in what they can go up on their budget every year. So with 70% of an average city or town's workforce being teachers, how are we supporting and how are we going to continue to fund these increases that usually cost more than 2.5% in a Prop 2.5 world? And I think it just creates a very real conversation. And I always say, I know a lot of teachers' unions, they don't like to necessarily recognize that the step increases have real costs too, but I always say we have to talk about the total costs. Nobody's saying that teachers absolutely deserve what they have made, but we have to make it work in a Prop 2.5 world. And it's a real conversation. I think you have to talk real dollars, and I'm very honest about it and upfront about it. So I'm not sure if that answers this question or the one before, but I wanted to kind of bring that up.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. So my question, with your very thorough answer to the first question, you sort of answered, which was having multiple staff representatives working with the same client. And you mentioned Tom, Darren, and Lauren would be our three primary contacts. So beyond the primary contacts, would be anyone from your 46 staff that we would be interfacing with?
Sure. There certainly could be times when that would be the case. I mean, the way we set up our practice is basically, we want you to feel like you have a small firm experience where you have, it's basically going to be Darren, myself, and probably Deb Ecker would be one of the other attorneys who's involved on a regular basis with the school department. But to the extent that a specialized question came up, for example, if something came up with respect to a real estate transaction, or if there was a zoning issue related to where you were going to look to site the new Pickering Middle School, for example, we would bring in one of our experts in that area. So it may be a situation where for that particular issue, you would be dealing with a different attorney, but, and that's what we really bring to the table, I think, is as a firm, is that we have that expertise across the board, so it's not a situation where you'd have to go out and hire special counsel to handle that particular issue. But for the most part, on any kind of day-to-day operational type questions or anything that came up, you would be dealing with either me, Darren, or probably Deb would be the three.
Tom, if I could just jump in for 1 sec. Lauren Goldberg, I'm the managing attorney at KP Law, and I'm very glad to be here tonight. Obviously, I don't need to say very much because these guys have quite a lot to say. But I do want to point out that, the fact that it isn't that we want you to feel like you're working with a small firm. You are working with your counsel. And you don't have to remember everybody else's who's working on a case, or if there's, someone you talk to about a particular issue. You just remember Tom and Darren, and you can call them, and they will figure out who they need to talk to and what they need to get, back to you in a time that's quick enough, to satisfy you. And again with the bench, it's not as though Tom and Darren or I know all the things about everything. I think we can agree that municipal law, including school law, has gotten more and more complicated. And so one of the benefits of the firm is, while we're all general municipalists or, general public sector lawyers, we each have that area of expertise. But that's behind the scenes. You guys never have to worry about that. If there's an issue that comes up that, that Tom or Darren thinks is, really best handled by a data protection specialist, he will go and talk to her and, bring you back the information you need. And if you want more, then we kind of leverage her knowledge and her abilities to your advantage. So.
And the only thing I would add is we don't hide the rest of the firm from you, too. Like, the superintendent may say, well, Darren, I appreciate you kind of playing intermediary, but I would like to talk to Janelle Austin as somebody who does tons of public records and data privacy issues. And the superintendent may say, I think I want to just call Janelle directly. And that's fine, too. It's not like we tried to bring it all to you through Tom and I, but it doesn't mean we limit you. If there's another attorney that you click with, or for certain issues you really enjoy dealing with and you want to deal directly, we absolutely offer that type of flexibility that works as well, too. So we kind of let you go at your own speed. We will be here to sort of do 90% of the work, and you'll be dealing with us. But if there's somebody else you like on a particular issue and you want to deal with that attorney directly, absolutely.
And just as a little follow-up, would anyone be assigned to attend the Lynn Public School Committee meetings?
Sure. My understanding is that was part of the service that you were looking for.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, we would have somebody attend one of the meetings. And I think what we would probably do in advance is we would review the agenda, obviously, with either the superintendent or the mayor, and see who would be the best person to attend that meeting. If there was going to be a lot of discussions about labor and employment type of issues, Darren would probably be the best person to go. If it was something that was more public construction related or MSBA, that would be me. But we would certainly be able to arrange for coverage, for any meetings that you wanted us to attend. That's something we're used to. A lot of us do. Well, anybody who really does any kind of municipal or public sector work understands that most boards and committees are staffed by people who have a day job. And so they're volunteers giving their time to the community. And so oftentimes the meetings are in the evenings. And so it's something we're certainly used to handling.
And I just mentioned quickly, the third attorney we have in the proposal is Deb Ecker, who's already done work with Lynn Schools and, recently was involved in an investigation and, really enjoyed working with the city. And, as I said, Tom and I are less than 10 minutes away. Deborah's probably 20 minutes away, 25 minutes away. So, we did that intentionally to try to give you as proximate attorneys as we could that can really fill out everything you need.
Okay, great, and thank you for coming tonight.
Good evening. My question is sort of different than the rest, but it's an example. So if a school committee member received a constituent call alleging that a particular school was acting in violation of Lynn Public School policy, and the planned action was scheduled for the following day, how would you handle that?
So I think well, obviously I would get all the information I could from you. I would then say the next two calls that I would need to make would be to the superintendent, obviously, and to the mayor as the school committee chair. I'd want to go through sort of, the urgency of the issue. Are we dealing with a safety issue, which obviously anytime safety of students or employees is involved, it's something we need to handle immediately, and obviously has a whole different set of urgency. And then obviously the next call would be to the principal of that building, and we would obviously try to resolve the situation, and if, after talking, with the superintendent and the mayor and the principal, we did feel that it was a violation of, like you said, the district policies, we certainly would recommend that the action not be taken, or try to find a way to bring it within the school district policy. So, I'm trying to deal with the hypothetical,
Yeah.
but assuming the event, if it is an event, could take place, but it maybe just needed to be modified slightly to comply, that would obviously be the goal. But if it was clearly in violation, we would talk about obviously putting that event off.
And I think, if I
Sure,
could,
absolutely.
I think it's important to recognize that we understand that you all have emergencies. We don't, as Tom was saying, we work at night, we work on the weekend, we get calls on Saturday morning while we're watching soccer or whatever it might be, much to our family's chagrin. But we are constantly handling crises. And so, especially in the labor and employment world, or when we're dealing with children, or other sensitive constituencies, our number one job is to make sure that no one's going to be injured, hurt, et cetera. And then after that, again, it's you guys, as a whole, the school committee is a decision maker. We're not the police. We don't tell you what you have to do, except once in a while, Darren does tell you what you have to do. But most of the time, we just want to bring the information to you, identify what the decision points are, and then support you in making those decisions. And then once that decision is made, we will defend that decision as zealously as we can. It's very common for us to get calls from one person or another person on a board or committee, and each time we come back to, this is the school committee, or this is the board of selectmen, or the city council. It's not individuals, so we can get that information, but we vet that the appropriate way through the chair and through the superintendent immediately. We don't want to do anything that you all wouldn't want us to do, and oftentimes, if there's a real emergency, we'll wind up having a meeting to bring everyone up to date and try to figure out what the next steps are.
Thank you.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much. Just wanted to offer you an opportunity if there's any other thoughts or comments you wanted to share.
The only thing that I just wanted to add, again, and thank you for giving us the opportunity to meet with you this evening, is that the one thing that we didn't really touch on is some of the other things that we do as far as kind of proactive and preventative law. That's really the focus of the firm, and it's something that we really believe strongly in, and that's to, try to give you advice that's preventative in nature to avoid incurring costs and the time and heartache associated with litigation. And in some of the other ways that we do that are we offer to all of our clients, we offer 2 free seminars a year on a variety of different topics. We cover the open meeting law, public records, how to have a public hearing, disciplinary issues for employees, things like that, which we would offer to you as well. We also put out e-updates periodically on a variety of different topics. Most recently, the focus has been primarily on the COVID-19 pandemic, as you can imagine, related to different issues with respect to mask mandates, vaccination, and some of the employment issues that go along with that. So that's another service that we do offer that we think is a real benefit to our clients. But other than that, just thank you for having us this evening.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very
Wonderful.
much.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for coming.
So, members, if we would take a motion to adjourn this committee of the whole meeting.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Member Castellanos? Yes. Member Capola?
Yes.
Member Dugan?
Yes.
Member Gately?
Yes.
Member Magnolia?
Yes.
Member Pena?
Yes.
Mayor Nicholson?
Yes. All right, adjourned. School Committee, the sessions are not designed to encourage debate or lengthy exchange of views, but are to have the committee understand numerous points of view. The committee would appreciate speakers keeping their presentation to 3 minutes in order to accommodate as many people as time permits. The chair reserves the right to limit the number of speakers on the same topic to 3. All speakers must be at least 18 years of age or enrolled in the high school in the Lynn Public School District, having discussed their views with a student government representative. The chair reserves the right to rule the speaker out of order if she feels that the speaker's comments are personal in nature. If the speaker's comments are directed at a school committee member or a member of the school administration in attendance, that member, through the chair, may address the individual. The sessions will promptly commence 15 minutes prior to the start of the regular school committee meeting. There is a sheet in the table here for anyone interested to speak at our open mic session. Thank you. Thank you. All right, so we will begin with Paul Renzi. Just want to start by reminding anyone that's sharing that while we encourage and welcome the sharing on policy matters, the personnel issues are not appropriate topics for a public forum like this. So just wanted to start there for personnel matters.
Okay. So I mean, in regards to the subject that I had on there, is this not the forum to discuss that at this point, or?
Right. If you're talking about specific individuals, it's just not because this is a public meeting. Yeah. You know, if you have thoughts about the general philosophy or policy issues, then.
Okay. Well, I guess I could touch on that then without touching on individuals.
Can you just give me one more?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, and the other thing that the superintendent mentioned, which I think is a great point, is that he's happy to offer a forum for people to talk that did not be in the public meeting. So if you want to sit down with Dr. Tutwiler and share specific thoughts and feedback about
I have a question.
personnel.
If it's for the benefit of our children, why cannot we not ask all of you guys to have to do with the same thing?
So I'll run down the list.
We're not here to fight and argue, we're just here to put our concerns on the table.
Right, yeah, so I'll run down the list, but this is supposed to be topics that are before the school committee, you know, so policy matters at the district level, and the personnel matters is just not the appropriate form, because by definition, you're having to name individual people. That's not to say that they aren't valid and important concerns, it's just finding the right place to share those. Thank you. So that being said, if you could state your name and address, and then, you know, we can try to figure it out as we go, if you'd like to. Okay.
No problem. My name is Paul Lindsay. I live at 16 Addison Ave here in Lynn. I guess, to not get individualized with this, the idea of athletic coaches. I know there are some openings that may have just come up. I would think that the city as a whole would look at those coaches that they're looking to hire and applicants and consider people who are extremely invested in the city of Lynn, who have given a lot of time, have lived here, have done a good job. I recently did coach in the city football. And so when looking at candidates for those positions or to replace those positions, that, we would put the good of the youth and the good of the kids forward before any kind of politics or anything, that may run onto that. I guess that would kind of, lead me. I guess my other question would be, how could I get in touch with you, Superintendent, so that we could have, an actual conversation about, some of the issues?
Once we're done with this, before we start the meeting,
Okay.
I'll come over.
Fair enough. Thank you. That's all set for now.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Lindsay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Thank you. Lizna Santiago.
First of all, I've never done this, so I don't even know what I have to do. But my name is Lynette Santiago. I live on 20 and a half New Park Street. I have a high school junior, a Lynn English High School. I just heard via Facebook media that my son's coach position is open. He's only been with us for 6 months. I understand this. So some regulations, what's so forth, what's some not. I heard everybody's position that gave me a call today. Brian, Lenny, I apologize for whatever I posted earlier. Brian, thanks for getting back to me. Thanks for explaining, and thanks for caring. I am here caring for my student, for my child, that coach took out of that basketball court when he was with the wrong people and put him on that field and put him on them books. I'm here for other parents that also have emailed Dr. Braga, whatever his name is, because I've only seen a picture. I've never even had an introduction with the guy for him to decide over a coach or to post a position that a coach has been holding, making a life in this kid's life. I've not seen my son in the book so much since this coach has stepped in the game. My son would not come to me to trust me or tell me, Mom, I love you. Okay, since he went out into high school. I never seen the son I had into Coach Charles McKenzie stepped on that field. And I appreciate if that position could get taken off that posting and he could be kept for at least another year. My son has changed coach twice since he's been at Lynn English, and Lynn Public Schools actually has failed me once with my autistic son. And if it wouldn't be because of Brian Castellanos and Michael Satterwhite, I would have not headed the right direction to get my son's needs. So I am here to beg as a needed parent, and I appreciate if anybody would hear me and take this into consideration, because all the parents want to be here today and they are unable to make it here today. But we will fight and we will be into this. I have a petition that has about almost 200 people signed for it because we all want him to stay. So I would hope this gets taken into consideration. That's all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Santiago. Mr. Beret. Bursey, sorry.
I'm Alan Bursey. I live in 62 Curran Road. I agree with everything that both of the previous people said, and the biggest thing is the assessment. Assessment of a coach cannot be 6 months. It just doesn't. It doesn't jive that after 6 months of coaching football, that somebody can be possibly replaced. I don't think it's long enough for somebody to prove what they can do. So, I mean, that's the only thing that kind of, it's kind of strange in this situation, that after 6 months, I've coached 13 years. So I know how much work it takes to succeed, especially in Lynn with 5 high schools. We have KIPP, we have St. Mary's, we have Lynn Tech, English, Lynn English, and Lynn Classical. It's very hard to get a group of talented kids to succeed right away. You need time to build your program to prove that you can do the job that you were set out there to do. It cannot be done in 6 months. A coach's job is a year-round job. And so in 6 months, you can't, I don't think you can properly assess a human for giving all that he can for the city, especially a person that's already grew up in the city and had already been coaching and knows how to produce and do the things that's needed for the young people in our city, stay off the streets and to succeed. But 6 months is just not enough time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bercy.
Thank you.
Is there anyone here that would like to speak at open mic? Anyone remaining? Okay, we will close open mic. Thank you. All right, I would like to call to order the second regular meeting of the school committee. Roll call, please.
Member Castellanos?
Present.
Member Capola?
Present.
Member Dugan?
Present.
Member Gately?
Present.
Member Magnolia?
Present.
Member Pena?
Present.
Mayor Nicholson?
Present. All right, Pledge of Allegiance, and then we'll remain standing for a moment of silence. Pledge of Allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We'd like to now have a moment of silence for Tracy Lee Burke, food services cook on January 9th, 2022. Timothy Toomey, retired teacher on January 11th, 2022. Frederick Cole, retired assistant superintendent, January 22nd, 2022. And Claire Glowick, retired confidential secretary on January 24th, 2022. Thank you. Okay. Next time on the agenda is the minutes.
Make a motion to accept the first regular meeting with executive session on January 13, 2022.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Member Castellanos?
Yes.
Member Capola?
Yes.
Member Dugan?
Yes.
Member Gately?
Yes.
Member Magnolia?
Yes.
Member Pena?
Yes.
Mayor Nicholson?
Yes. There are no appointments and elections, and next item is the Lynn Community Enrichment Program presentation from Ms. Guzman.
Good afternoon, everybody. Nice to see you all. Happy New Year.
Yes.
Happy New Year.
Yeah.
Good evening.
Good evening. My name is Michelle Guzman, and I would like to let you know a little bit more of the program that I'm running. I'm the coordinator of the Lynn Community Enrichment Program. Some people might be very familiar with that. Some new faces might not. So that's the other reason why we're here. And here with me is
Guadalupe Vélez. Community outreach.
Community outreach for, she is working part-time with New Lynn Coalition. And so together we are trying to reach more of a broader audience, and that's what we're here for. Let me see.
There you go.
Okay, so Lynn Community Enrichment Program is a collaboration between Lynn Public Schools and New Lynn Coalition, which is a nonprofit organization formed with board, faith, labor, and community organizations in Lynn, union and non-union. And they are to empower the all sectors of the working class. And so one of the ways that they are doing this is through education. So on 2015, New Lynn Coalition and other organizations created the Community Benefit Agreement that was work with the a Boston developer who did the Lower Washington project, the beautiful green building in front of North Shore Community College. So the agreement was for them to build this beautiful building, but then they will commit to invest back to the community with trainings and improve job skills. So that is why this is the project that is standing right now. And so the funds came from that agreement, and they work it out together through the agreement for bring funds to us. What I learned from this agreement was that the Lower Washington project was is teaching us an important lesson. And that is that how a housing development project can invest in the education of Lynn if the parties involved are if the parties involved work together. So that's one of the ways that how New Lynn Coalition was born. And so LCEP is a nice school for Lynn residents, but we're not limited only to Lynn. It's for the North Shore. Offers classes for personal growth, also for improve their job skills like computer classes, but also for leisure. So for example, one of the things that we're going to promote is a yoga class for teachers. And we are really looking forward that after a very heavy day for teachers, paraprofessionals, or staff in the Lynn community, in the schools, they can go and take a yoga class, okay? So that's an invitation for everybody, men and women. So we're definitely looking for staff to come down and enjoy that. The beauty of this is that the classes are once a week. So it's not like, we understand our population is for the adults, with house and then work and careers and kids and everything, asking them to come twice a week, like it's too much. So the program runs once a week. The classes are from 6 to 8 with the exception of yoga, because that starts at 4. So, if teachers are done at 3:30, they can get dressed and then they can go to the yoga classes. But also, the program is self-sustained. And so what we have from the registrations comes and pays our teachers. So that's another thing that we work together with that and make sure that our teachers are paid, but then the classes meet that small criteria or students. So we're not an additional burden to the budget of the Lynn Public Schools. So right now, I'm excited because Lupe is helping me to do the outreach, and I'm going to be more concentrated on the expansion and the actual getting the LCP bigger, and then reach out more people in our here in Lynn, but also in the North Shore. So what I did over here is that the expansion is actually into sections. One is when is the regular classes, yoga, ESOL. We also have a conversational Spanish. One of our teachers is Ms. Rowe from Reed, and she does a tremendous job at our school. Also, Lisa Lynch teaches yoga, and so we have public speaking too from one of the professors from North Shore Community College. So we have a good variety of classes. This session, this winter session, we're going to have cooking and hopefully cake decorations. So we're really trying to find a little bit of diversity. But the other thing is that we want to be able to improve some skills. And so that is the other section in this display, when it's certification oriented classes. So the first thing that we have is the introduction to oil burner. I'm working on get a teacher that is certified for Microsoft Suite. So at the end that the students take these classes, they will be able to have that certificate. And of course, it looks pretty when you're doing a resume, right? And the biggest one that we're doing right now is the paraprofessional. We're creating this class where whoever is interested to become a paralegal will have that background. Because right now, we have Lynn Public Schools, which is it's a testing site. And so we are getting ready to promote it and make it available to people in the North Shore, that they're going to be able to schedule appointments here in Lynn to be tested. So we will see that progress coming out. Here, I introduce you to the LCEP board, the people that I report and I work with. The superintendent over here is the champion here. Mr. Ford, he was very nice. He did not continue running, but he wanted to stay with us, and I appreciate that. It's me as the coordinator. Then we have Tish Mokala. She is the president of the New Lynn, along with the executive director, Jeff Crosby. And we need 2 more members in our committee, on our board, so then we're balanced, and then, we bring a little bit more of diversity. So if anybody is interested, I'm gonna be looking for you for that. And then, so the 2 biggest announcements is that the winter session is going to start after February vacation, March 1st. We're going to have the registration online. We're in the process of updating our website, and we're going to do an in-person sign-up night the first 2 weeks of February. And the second biggest thing is that we are getting ready for that testing day for paraprofessionals. We did a test last year, limited. We didn't go out. We just kept it in-house because we just wanted to make sure that we have all the necessary tools for that. And so the last one was in November. We got 3 ladies that did the test, but only one had passed the test. And so that's the other focus that we want to do, and that's the preparation class that I want to build. We already have a curriculum from Lawrence, and so they're doing it there. And so I'm working with them to see if we can implement it here for that. And so the other thing is that next week, I am sure you guys received my emails. We are inviting you guys. This event is called Discovering LCP. It's targeted for community leaders and head of departments in local organizations, that to let them know about this program, and so we can extend a little bit more of what the regular audience that we have. So it's welcome. Everybody is welcome here. It's going to be a small gathering, obviously following the protocols for COVID, social distancing, but it's going to be a short program, but also filling out the stories of the things that we have done so far, how people has changed when they just take the classes over there. So it's a resource within the community, and definitely we want to expand that to more people. And that's it. Do you guys have any question or comments?
Member Dugan.
Yes, so thank you. I'm a graduate of the program, the conversational Spanish, by the skin of my teeth, but I did finish. So you talked about the Parapro testing. Could you explain a little bit more about that? Because I think that's wonderful that you're helping with things like that. But just the test itself, what
the
what that entails a little bit?
Paraprofessional?
Yes.
So the Paraprofessional, it's a program. So you can get a Paraprofessional Certificate from the state through 2 ways. One is through I think it's 32 college credits, and you submit your paperwork, and then that's the validation for a paraprofessional. But the other one this is the one that we're doing here, is that you take the test, is 2 hours and a half, and through the ETS program, which is the software in the company that is authorized by the state of Massachusetts to be approved and make sure that everything goes well. And so we make a date, and then whoever is interested can take this test. Obviously, I do a preparatory class where I do a tutorial. I explain them what this is going to be, and they even the website has some resources for them to study. And so they take the test, and depending on their score, that's how you know if they pass. And so, paraprofessionals are the teacher's aide, and so that's the difference. Does that answer your question?
Yes, it does, and thank you very much. It's a great program.
Thank you. Lorraine?
Yeah, Member Gately.
I'm like so thrilled that you got the test in Lynn. You have worked years to get that test in Lynn, and seeing this made my day. I was like, that's awesome.
Thank you.
That happened. This is a great program. People that are like looking for jobs, they don't have a job, you can take Intro to Oil Burner, learn Microsoft Suite, interpretations. And it's not a lot of money. And do you have any kind of vouchers or something? So if someone say they couldn't pay for it, is there anything that they have?
At this moment, no. What I do tell people, right now at this time, obviously we're the lowest classes. And I definitely understand. What I do say is that if this is an investment on you, so if this is 6 weeks, if you think about it, that you save at least $10 a week, you can get to that. Yep. But we do offer through the organization New Link Coalition, right now it's limited to their members right now, and it's a little bit, I think it's $30 discount for that, but it's for their members through them, because that was part of that, the community benefit agreement that I mentioned, so they work for that. But we're not doing it for the regular, like for the general public. That's something that maybe we can explore and find out a way to do some vouchers.
I'm very thrilled with this, Michelle. I'm so happy about that para test.
Yeah.
It was like out west something.
Yeah, and the closest was Holyoke.
Yeah.
And very, very far away. Sometimes it was limited to Lawrence, but the one that consistent was in Holyoke to go. And the other thing is that it's part of the event next week, and that's why I would like you to be there. It's the official announcement through the newspapers and through the social media and the media that Lynn Public Schools, especially Lynn Tech, is going to be the testing site for that.
It's great job.
It's great. Thank you.
Thank you. Member Peña and Member Castellanos.
Thank you, Michelle. Muchas gracias por venir. I know all the work you put into this, and I really appreciate it. It's a great program. Now, is this on the classes that you offer? Are they on a first come basis? Is there a capacity, or are people have to register in advance to?
Yeah, so we have two ways, which is the online, and which is most of the people that register, and then the other one is through in person. There is a limit, but because of the space and the between the classes, it's between 12 and 14, up to 14 students, and having that social distancing between. And what else? That's it, right?
Yeah, no, that was the question with the especially like the yoga class and the other classes.
The only thing that I want also to point out is that I forgot to mention is that, for example, we are the only program that is giving computer classes in Spanish, and so I'm working out with Greenlandia. There is this person from Us Higher that she speaks Spanish, and so we're trying to see also from New American Center to see if we can pathways to, if we can have like a crew coming into Spanish and then learn the basic computers. Also for the seniors, that's another thing that we're doing.
and this is open not only to Lynn, you said the North Shore.
Exactly, for the North Shore, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, the classes is going to start March 1st, but the enrollment is in next week. We're working on it. The website, through the website, yes.
Thank you. Douglas.
Member Castellanos.
First of all, thank you so much for coming tonight, and I really appreciate your thorough presentation and all the work that you guys put into this. It does take a lot of work, especially coming, post-pandemic and all the challenges that were presented in front of you and just the resilience that takes. Because these programs really change lives, and they impact community in really positive ways. And I really appreciate the equitable access points that you just talked about, having the technology piece transition to our Latino population, which is growing, very important. I want to kind of just briefly have a conversation around funding. Can you explain to me a little bit more about what that funding looked like? Is that grant-based? Is it through?
No, so the specific agreement that we got it through the developer, and I think it was $50,000 last year. But then that was kind of like the takeoff for us, and then now we're sustaining each other. The benefit is that, for example, if one class has low enrollment, but another class has a lot of students, then we balance it out. So right now I have not really have any bad luck of canceling too many classes. For example, the last session was because there was low enrollment, but then still we had three classes. So right now is based just sustaining by itself, not necessarily that we have extra money from that. But I think that looking forward, that's one of the commitments as a coordinator, trying to find out how can we bring other programs or work together, for example, North Shore Community College, and so work something out. Because I know that there is an organization looking for a space, and probably our program can do that, because they also they're based here in Lynn, and so we might work something out and then help out more people.
It's actually what I had written down was partnerships with the Lynn Community, with North Shore Community College, and just exploring what partnerships are out there, the needs out there. I think it's it's tremendous to hear, to see that you guys are expanding, to look at the certification, the paraprofessional piece is really a standout. And when I see and others to come, I can't wait to see it, and I was like writing stuff down. I always like when I think hope is important, right?
Yeah.
And I think trying to vision these different certifications that can help this community get lifted up, and that's how folks are going to go ultimately feed their families and improve their lot in life. And I think giving these opportunities and access to our community is vital.
Yeah, thank you. And also, I am actually reaching out right now, working with 3 community leaders and trying to see if the way I see it is that if there is a need and then there is people that will be able to teach it, like, for example, organizing one-on-one, how the youth can get involved into one of the careers, political careers or something like that. So the conversation is there, and then we're looking for venues, how to make it abroad and bring people together. But that's the mission of this program, and especially mine, to focus on that. Wonderful. Bringing the community together.
Thank you.
Amazing. Thank you.
Member Coppola. Yeah. Yep.
I'm just wondering on the paraprofessional test.
Yes, ma'am.
What prep do they get to take the test? I see that the registration for classes is March 1st, so the test is on the 12th. Were they in a previous class and now they're testing out on it?
So there are two targeted audience on this. One, there are people that are ready to go, that they're gonna study on their own and they want to just take the test and have that opportunity. And there is this other group of people that they want to get ready. But based on the curriculum that I got from Lowell, it's actually like 6 months work. And so I am trying to see if I do it through the North Shore Community College, if we can incorporate that. I already did that conversation. Faustina Cuevas from the City Hall was very instrumental to make that connection. And so that's the way that we are doing it right now. So right now, the website offers some sort of studies, guide studies, and they will take it on their own. So, but I am very clear with the people that are interested that, okay, this is the test. So it's not like you're going to get ready or have a preparatory class. That's going to be hopefully the next session.
Okay, so basically now, people could access the curriculum or whatever you're referring to get ready for the test themselves.
Yes, but I have to tell you, I'll be honest with you, Donna, that I saw the study guide and doesn't really have a lot of information. Like, to become a paraprofessional, you have to really know the grammar, the math, and it's very detailed on the study. So I think that also whoever is already ready, like in this case, for example, people that were studying in their countries, they can have that validation and they are ready. They just have to take the test. So that's the other target too. I work into qualifications and taking the test.
Okay, and just referring back to the school department, I know that a lot of our para jobs require the associate's degree. So what would they be doing if they pass this test? Are you able to hire them?
Same thing.
Same thing.
So it's equivalent. Yeah, it's an equivalent.
It's an equivalent.
So,
okay.
Donna, we actually had to break that myth because for some reason communication wasn't there. It was understood that you needed to have certain amount of credits, and that was the only way to become a paraprofessional. But then through our previous work with Rachel and all the other departments within the city and within the Lynn Public Schools, we were able to differentiate that it's one or the other. So if you have college credits, you don't need to take the test. You already have that certificate. But the other way is you only have to have high school or your high set, and then you take the test, and then you can become paraprofessional. So yeah, that was a myth that was there, that if you don't have an associate, you're not eligible. But yes, you are.
Thank you.
Dr. Stilwell, did you have?
Yeah, just quickly, I was going as fast as I can. I didn't want to run when I was setting up the PowerPoint because I wanted to say something in the beginning. But I'm glad that you just dove right in because you can hear the enthusiasm in Michelle's voice, and every phone call that we have, every meeting that we have, that enthusiasm is there, and it's really paying incredible dividends in terms of the polish of the program. It is just growing, it's evolving, and I'm just thrilled to work with you on it.
Thank you so much. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, and I'll just want to echo that. And I had the privilege of serving on the board for my time on the school committee over the last 6 years. And, it's a tremendous program with a ton of potential to be contributing to the city and workforce development, to the individuals that participate, a great opportunity to be building partnerships with really key workforce development partners. And I did have to stepping into this role, but would certainly encourage people who are interested to join this team because they're doing great work in the community and in our schools and sort of building that bridge between the community and the schools. So thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you, everybody. Have a good night.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Great night.
He's here.
Yeah, so we're just going to take a quick recess before the next agenda item. Okay, all right, thank you. Pickering Building Project Update with Mr. Donovan. Thank you, Mr. Donovan, for joining us this evening. Obviously, we are moving ahead with the Pickering Building Project, and we wanted to share an update with the committee as to where we are in that process and take questions from the committee. So, Mr. Donovan, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me here. Good evening, everybody. In December of 2021, the MSBA approved the City of Lynn to move into the Pickering Feasibility Study project. The city has been approved for an 1,100 student study. This is versus the previous school study where the Pickering was approved for 652 students and the Westland School for 1,000 students. It was a two-school solution. This time it's a one school for 1,100 students. The purpose of the study is to pick a design option for the school, whether it's renovation and addition, or a new building, then go through a schematic design of the building and the site, develop a cost and schedule, and submit it to the MSBA for their approval. The cost of the study is $1.5 million, and upon completion of the study, the information that we brought forward to the MSBA for their consideration of approval and a schedule. The estimated cost of this project is between $110 and $140 million, depending on the site constraints, and the layout of the building itself. So the first step in the process is the selection of the owner's project manager, the OPM. The OPM is the owner's representative in the project. He sits with the owner, reviews the schedule from the designers, reviews the design, value engineering, cost estimating, provides the clerk of the works on the job, and acts as the clerk for the job. There's a lot more that goes into than just being the clerk, but all the documentation from the job goes through the OPM. The MSBA's documentation is very thorough and in-depth, and they're responsible for making sure that the city meets the documentation schedules and that the reimbursements are turned in the proper fashion so that the city gets its reimbursement. They also will be the party between the city and the MSBA and negotiations, sitting aside next to the city, on items as to whether they're eligible for reimbursement or not. Sometimes there are gray areas when you get into these projects, and so there's a little bit of room for negotiation. So the school building committee, which has been sat down by the mayor, I don't have the list with me, but I'm sure you've all seen it. Their first action will be to form an OPM Selection Committee. This committee will prepare the request for services, the RFS, to go out and procure the OPM. This is the city's first action, and the city's only action that it takes by itself. After we procure the OPM will be drawing up the RFS for the designers. The city will work alongside them, but from that point on, the OPM and the design professionals will be on the job. OPM, then we procure the designer, then we start the study. So the OPM Selection Committee will put the RFS out, and responses will come in, they'll be ranked. Interviews will be held for the top 3 respondents, and the results will be turned over to the school building committee to make a decision. Then it will be presented to the MSBA. The MSBA has the final say in the selection of an OPM and a designer, but generally when a community picks an OPM and they have the requisite design experience, OPM experience, background in the matters at hand, that selection is allowed. So the next step after the RFS for the OPM will be to go out and seek a designer. A request for services will be prepared by the city and the OPM. It'll go out, respondents will be brought back, and at that point, the respondents go to the MSBA's design panel, designer selection panel. It's a 16-member panel. 13 of the people are appointed by the executive director of the MSBA, and 3 people are appointed by the City of Lynn. The representatives from the city and land of the mayor are his designee, the superintendent, and a representative from the school committee, their appointee. The respondents to the designer selection RFS will be allowed to make a presentation. The panel, designer selection panel, will score them, and then the selection will be made by that panel at that time. Based on the schedule that we've put together, a very rough schedule, and a very tight schedule, that should happen in May of 2022. Once that happens, we will go directly into the feasibility and schematic study. Now, we've been down this road before for the site, the school, and normally it can take up to 18 months. I've proposed a schedule for inclusion, which I'll be presenting to the school building committee. That's a little tighter. It only has a year for that because a lot of the background and legwork have already been done. So part of the process is a site selection. It's one of the most important aspects. We've already explored all the sites that are available in these locations. If there's another site that comes up that becomes available, it's one new one. It's not 10 new ones. The site selection, the sites will just have to be updated, the ownership, the values of the site, and anything that's changed in the past 5 or 6 years. Traffic study, similar. New counts, just updated, but the basis of the study is the same. The information on the system, the school system as it is, we have everything. So a lot of the work that's been done should be accepted by the designer that we select, that is selected for us, and we move forward with that. So I believe that a year for a feasibility schematic study would be sufficient before we could get back to the MSBA. That, of course, will depend on the MSBA schedule, whether or not our designer and OPM in the city and the school department are able to get through all the meetings, public meetings, and things that are necessary to accomplish this in a visible manner in a year. It could take longer. If it takes longer, there's no harm. It's just going to delay the opening of school a little bit. At the end of the day, with a very tight schedule, I would hope that we could be in the ground in the fall of 2024 for an opening in 2027. 5 years is a long time, but in the world of building schools, it's just about right to get through the process. So if anybody has any questions, I'd be more than happy to answer them if I could.
Thank you, Mr. Donovan. Member Magnolia.
Thank you very much for this information. How does the reuse of any of our site studies or any of the information that we gathered as part of the last process affect that $1.5 million price tag? I know that the previous mayor thought that the city might be able to save some money as well as time by reusing some of that information from the last go-round.
Yes, I agree with the mayor in that respect. That's why rather than 18 months of hoping that we can get through this process in 12 months. All the background research has been gathered, and the background doesn't change. We only have to look at what happened, say, between 2017 when we stopped work on this and 2022 to update the sites, and whether the site's owned by the same people or not, whether it's been developed since that time. So everything that was done, traffic studies, environmental studies, utility research, it just needs to be looked at quickly to determine, has there been a change since 2017? So time is money, and if we don't have to pay the designers to recreate the wheel, as it were, spending all this time doing research, then we will save money on this.
Thank you.
Member Pena.
Thank you, Mr. Donovan. I had a question. Who makes up the committee to select the OPM? How does that come together? Who makes that committee up?
The school building committee makes that decision.
Okay.
Member Castellanos.
Thank you so much, Mr. Donovan, for coming before us to explain an update. So in terms of just, when we look at 2027, so that's 5 years, like you said, it seems that's where we're at with that. What communication plans do we look like moving forward? What are we going to do to make sure that we're collaborating? I know it's not just you, it's a lot of it's going to be a very large effort, but what do you, from the last time we did this to now, what would be some of your recommendations for just, some of this is very complex, right? Like what you're talking about, it's what you do, but just for our public, what ways can we enhance our outreach? As an elected official, as folks in this room who are here, when you hear 2027, you can imagine some folks are going, So, I just want to
Well, let's start with why it's so long.
Yeah.
So if we work backwards, it's going to be 2 years of construction. I mean, when we're talking an 1,100 student school, think Thurgood Marshall. It's an 1,100 student school. That's what will be being built. Whether it's 3 stories or 4 stories or 2 will depend on the site, but that's the size and the complexity of the building. Then there'll be a year and a half or a little bit longer of design. Design may be broken up into 2 packages where we go out after the first 11 months of design and go, like we did at Thurgood Marshall, into the ground with the site work and the foundations and the steel, and then bid the rest 6 months later. 2 years of design, 2 years of construction, a year for the feasibility, we have 5 years. Some of this is timed, though, also upon the MSBA, because we're not the only ones in the state building a school. So their revenues derive from the sales tax, and they spread it out. So they program, they know what this building's going to roughly cost, and they program it out with all the other communities so that their revenues are sufficient to pay for their obligations to the communities moving forward. And their review is very thorough of the designs to make sure, well, frankly, that we don't get another classical. It's the lesson that we hear all the time at the MSBA. We have the distinction of that. In regards to an open process, I mean, 2017 doesn't sound like a long time ago, but look at your phone, look at Zoom. I mean, the atmosphere we live in these days, it's so much easier to push information out, to allow people to speak back. I mean, excuse me. See what I mean? I mean, meetings can be held that people can't get to. The school building committee meetings could be held in a room like this and taped and played. That wasn't possible back in 2015 when we started the process. We just didn't do that. I don't know of anybody who did that. Social media is there. What we did in 2015, all the meeting and the minutes and studies were posted on the school's website. There's going to be, and I would assume that that's going to happen again. There'll be a website page where people can go, but being able to see something live, to watch discussions like some people may actually be doing tonight, will give people the ability to see that and be part of the process as it was. There's, I believe, 22 members of the school building committee, and it represents a very large different aspects of the community. So I think that the plan that's been presented by the mayor with the school building committee is of such shape and soundness that good communications should fall out. Everybody's going to have to do their part, but there's no reason it shouldn't.
And I agree, and I just wanted to add, when we look at the time frame, these buildings last. These are supposed. There's a lot that they're meant for durability, and it takes time to build these. I could imagine. So, as we know, we have some buildings that are 100+ years old that are still standing. So I could imagine, with what we're looking at now, the longevity and these capital building plans look like.
Great. So, Dr. Tawari wanted to jump in.
Very quickly. When we were developing and I don't expect everybody to have this committed to memory, but when we were developing the goals toward the end of the late summer, early fall, one of the final goals that came in was related to strategic objective number 3, which is around, the buildings and maintenance and things of that nature. And that goal has everything to do with a robust outreach plan related to this project. So that might be more me in partnership with the building committee than Mr. Donovan.
Yeah, and I'll just add on to that, Member Castellanos. It's a great question, and I think it's certainly a goal for this process that we all are going to buy into, and that we're all going to be part of. I think one of the basic things we're doing is we invited Mr. Donovan here tonight, and want to make that a regular feature of our meetings to have updates to this group, and therefore to the public. We have, as Mr. Donovan said, a relatively large school building committee whose help we're going to ask in getting the word out, and also bringing the community input, of which yourself, Member Castellano, Member Gately are a part. And we're certainly going to be asking the committee's help, and I know Dr. Tutwiler has been thinking and working on that as well, and on behalf of him and his team. So it's certainly going to be up to all of us to make this a really proactive and communicative process, and we're aiming to start that from the very beginning. I think I had Member Gately, and then Member Magnolia. Okay.
Mr. Donovan, I am the building and grounds chair, so I'm going to be working with you. I'd like to be optimistic, and I want to go over the timeline for Thurgood Marshall, because didn't we start that in 2013?
We did.
And didn't
No. We started that in 2009, 9 or 10, I believe.
2009?
And there was a lengthy pause on the Thurgood Marshall study between the feasibility and moving forward, having to do with construction projects across the state. Nothing to do with the city, but it had to do with the MSBA and some things outside the cities. We opened the school in 16. We started construction in early 15. We were 2011, 12, I believe, the feasibility. And so there was a pause. Otherwise, it would have been 5 years.
Okay, because I did notice that we opened it in April,
Yes.
and it was like a pleasant surprise to the community that we opened that building in April, and they all went from the old Thurgood Marshall into the brand-new building, correct?
It was as smooth a transition as it could be.
And that's what I'm hoping for in the Pickering project.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Member Magnolia, yeah.
So out of curiosity, for those who don't know, Pickering is attached to Sisson. So we've got an elementary school and a middle school kind of joined at the hip, joined at the gym, literally. Obviously, if the plans that go forth are a reno, or an addition, that has to address Sisson because Sisson is attached to it. But if there's a new building that is chosen, a new building site altogether, what happens to the part of Sisson that's Pickering, if you know what I mean? Because it's hard to separate out how those two are. It's like a parasite. I'm not trying to be macabre, but I mean, the way they're stuck together is unique. How about that?
Part of the MSBA requirements are that you study a rehab, and then you study a rehab in addition. They make you go through the exercise. Looking at it, the first time it didn't make sense. If it didn't make sense, then it probably doesn't make sense now. But you have to go through, develop the cost, how you would look at it, what the layout would be. We did that, so we know the best we can do. Again, that's somewhere we should be able to save funding, because we know what, if we did an addition, where it would go because of all the constraints around it. At the end of the day, if we build a new building and it's located somewhere, and the students move out to that new building, it'll be up to the school committee to decide what to do with the remaining building. You would have a building that's partially built in 1905, added on in 1953. It's not suitable as a middle school. That does not mean that you could not use it as an elementary school. You could not use it as an early childhood center. You could not use it for other school means that. But right now, is not suited as a middle school, and that's why we're going through the exercise we are right now.
So what you're saying is that the sort of, I'll call it the Sisson problem, if we choose a new site, would kind of be a whole separate other issue because of the fact that we've chosen another site. So what to do with how those two things are attached is kind of a new project. Is that my understanding of what you're saying?
Well, I'm afraid I'm not understanding the question. I haven't been made aware of a problem with the way that that layout came from 1953 when they put those two additions onto the building. The school department, the school committee could choose to use the cafeteria and the gymnasium as part of Sisson if they wanted to and make the rest office space. The world is yours at that point. It's still a building that's in the control of the school committee and under the school departments to do. So funding available, you could do with it what you want.
I understand. I think here's where the disconnect is that gym and that cafeteria is called Pickering. It's not called Sisson. So I think what you're talking about, that space that Sisson could use, it's just called Pickering. It's not called part of the Sisson, like it's called the Pickering gym, not the Sisson gym, even though it's in that 53 part. So I think I understand what you're saying, which is that it could go back to Sisson or be part of Sisson if that was the decision of the committee. It's very strange how things are delineated within that building, common usage versus technicalities in terms of how old things are and when they were built.
I think that's just an artificial construct.
And now I get that. Thank you. You've illuminated that for me. I appreciate it.
Wonderful. All right. Well, thank you so much, Mr. Donovan, for the update.
Thank you, Mr. Donovan.
Thank you, Mr. Donovan.
Thank you very
Mr.
much.
Donovan.
Have a good evening, everybody.
You too.
You too as well.
All right, so the next item on the agenda is the request to accept donations from the Marblehead Municipal Employees Union and power up of sports equipment, musical instruments, and art supplies. What's the recommendation, Superintendent?
Recommendation is for the school committee to support that donation.
Great.
I'll make a motion to accept that.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Member Castellanos?
Yes.
Member Capola?
Yes.
Member Dugan?
Yes.
Member Gately?
Yes.
Member Magnolia?
Yes.
Member Pena?
Yes.
Mayor Nicholson?
Yes. Next item is request to accept donation from the Curtin family, who are proud to make the donation to fund loaner instruments in memory of their mother, Shirley Curtin, a longtime band parent and supporter of the arts in the Lynn Public School system. Recommendation of the superintendent.
The recommendation would be to support this wonderful donation.
Second.
Motion to accept.
Second.
Motion made, seconded. Roll call, please.
Member Castellanos?
Yes.
Member Capola?
Yes.
Member Dugan?
Yes.
Member Gately?
Yes.
Member Magnolia?
Yes.
Member Pena?
Yes.
Mayor Nicholson?
Yes. Next item, Lynn Teachers Union requests permission to continue the practice of presenting awards to deserving students in the graduating classes of the middle and senior high schools. Superintendent?
Once again, seeking the school committee's support of this wonderful collaboration with the Lynn Teachers Union, celebrating deserving students in middle and high.
Motion to accept.
Second.
Made and seconded. Roll call, please.
Member Castellanos?
Yes.
Member Capola?
Yes.
Member Dugan?
Yes.
Member Gately?
Yes.
Member Magnolia?
Yes.
Member Pena?
Yes.
Mayor Nicholson?
Yes. Thank you for all the generous supporters. All right, next item on the agenda is internet Wi-Fi access at schools. Dr. Magnolia.
Thank you very much. I brought this issue to the attention of the committee because I was getting reports from constituents about intermittent access at some of our schools. I brought this to the attention of Dr. Tutwiler, who is going to give us an update on our network capabilities, but I specifically have two questions. One of the questions is about the testing of how reliable the internet is, especially because some of our buildings are quite old. And I'm going to give you an example of that. We found at North Shore Community College that we had an amazing network capability, but we had rooms that did not have that amazing network capability. And it was only the reporting of the folks who were in those rooms that actually found out that the network was slowing down in them. So my first question to you is there a plan in place specifically to make sure that as we upgrade our network, there are nooks and crannies that are being covered just as well as main spaces? And this has particularly come to light in English high school. And then the second question that I wanted to bring up was how LPS is thinking it might work with the city, specifically with regards to ARPA funds for home internet use by our students. For those who don't know, after the pandemic, remote learning, now that students have laptops, a lot more homework assignments, even in the elementary grades, require the use of internet at home. But currently, not all of our Lynn Public School students have internet at home. If any of you have been at the Lynn Public Library, as soon as school gets out, you will see that children's department just overrun with kids who all sit down with either their laptops or the computers at the school that the library has to do homework first. In fact, the librarians are amazing there, just trying to make sure that the students do their homework before they play, right? So I'm hoping that LPS is working with the city to think about how we can make sure that there is internet access for our students at home, since the sort of stopgap measure of those hot spots, which was in the beginning of the pandemic, we know that some of that funding specifically ran out. So that's the nature of my questions. Thank you.
Thank you for the questions and the opportunity to talk about this. I think in your packets, there's a bullet point list with some information. If it's not, then I'm going to talk through it. This is a topic that has come up a number of times since the beginning of the school year. If you go back to last year, just quickly, you know that the number of devices, went up exponentially to meet the needs of students, to help staff support the learning needs of students. But what we didn't have, obviously, was a foundation for supporting that increase of devices on site in our schools. I mean, we had what we thought, or what was believed to be enough, given the devices that we had. And by the way, when the pandemic hit, we had approximately 10,000 devices, and not all of them were portable. Some of them were desktops and things of that nature. Now every student has one, every staff member has one, so a completely different scenario. With that reality in mind, the IT team had the foresight to work with Verizon to increase the bandwidth more than double than what we had pre-pandemic. That order was placed late spring last year in April with a confirmation and an expectation of delivery by June, which we were excited about. So we can actually test this out before we go into the summer. That didn't happen. And then became the waiting game, which I believe people experience in many facets of their lives during the pandemic, supply chain shortages, things of that nature. The problem is we had all the devices and people were using them enthusiastically. We have staff that have embraced the blended learning model wholeheartedly, and which we're excited about. But the system that we had across the district and schools just wasn't equipped to accommodate that kind of use, both the number of devices and the type of use, right? The streaming, there's videos. And so we consistently communicated to principals to limit, high bandwidth activities, streaming videos, where possible. But what resulted, quite frankly, frequently across the schools was, access issues, either an inability to access altogether, or you get the spinning wheel, or kicked out of programs, things of that nature. In this timeline, which I will make sure that you get, does outline some additional challenges that we experienced over the course. Some of them, not our fault, but just things that happen in the course of daily events that exacerbated the access issue. Now we're in a much better place. Actually, very recently, January 17th, Verizon finally was able to install one of two circuits. Even with the one circuit, we had significantly more than we had last year. And on that date, 6 schools were moved over to the new circuit: Hood, Lynn Woods, Washington, Aborn, English, Lynn Tech, the annex at Lynn Tech. They were all moved over. And that was done intentionally to kind of, go slow to go fast, right? We want to make sure that we test everything out, make sure it's working instead of flipping a switch and then having everybody experience more issues than they already were. And I also should mention that the IT team did what they call a load balancing strategy to sort of make the day-to-day experience better. We're able to successfully administer all of the MCAS retakes at the high school level. We are getting close to the end of access testing, which has gone smoothly at all of our schools, and we think that has a lot to do with the load balancing. But that's not to say that there weren't still issues. They were just a lot less. But in any case, the 17th, we had 6 schools moving on to the new circuit. And then this week, we moved 6 more schools on. Harrington, Tracy, Cobbett, Callahan, Druitt's, and Fallon. The first switch over to the new network went really well. The second, it's reported, has gone really well. And so with that, there'll be an assessment tomorrow with the hopes of moving the remaining schools onto the new circuit. And what we hope will be a far better experience as it relates to access. Those ports, actually, you can see right there 2 things. One, new ports were purchased and were installed across the district. I think that's the right name for those things right there that actually say Aruba on it, and every time I look at it, I think of Aruba. I'm not there. And it would be nice. But those were installed, and additionally, we have a new firewall, and IT has been slowly turning that firewall on, testing, asking schools to test the applications that they use most frequently. I mean, we have, knock on wood, not a lot, but some issues with certain applications, which they're able to rectify pretty quickly with that new firewall. But so far, it's gone really, really smoothly. English High School has, like many schools, experienced challenges. Part of the solution exists in reporting, right? So where's the problem? Well, when I go over here, I have no connection, or I'm in this corner of the room, I have no connection. They have a tech on site full-time who can support addressing those issues. Recently, and I just spoke to the principal about this, in the morning in particular, there's some challenges, and that has a lot to do with the volume. Well, actually, we got an expert right here. Maybe you can tell us. But a lot of students, a lot of teachers logging on and sort of firing things up, which causes some slowdowns. But we suspect in the coming days they'll be able to rectify that. And as far as a sort of general oversight, are things working? Where are the hangups? IT has a pretty robust system that churns out data, reports. You can see where the hang-ups are, and that process is what they use to load balance before we got onto the new circuits. They're watching that closely because they desperately want to make sure that this works well, because they know that kids' experience is impacted by this. So I apologize, this is not in your packet, but I'll make sure that you get that. It's just a timeline of the events since the beginning of the school year. At-home Wi-Fi access is extremely important because, as you said, and I agree, there is a higher expectation around access beyond the school day. Last year, we started with a partnership with Comcast to provide in-home Wi-Fi setups. We've since moved to T-Mobile, which provides a hotspot that looks a lot like this. We still have those, and there are about 350 of those out in force right now. We really rely on staff in partnership with either a social worker to, students say, I can get my homework done because we don't have Wi-Fi at home. Great. that teacher relays that to the principal or social worker, and then we can get a hotspot for that student at home. So we still have those, and we've got plenty of them, and certainly provide that wherever the need is. And I suspect that will just be an enduring, supply that we keep, because this is not going away.
Thank you.
How was the internet in English today? I have to ask. Be honest. Now he just took a deep breath, so now I'm worried.
It's definitely internet.
Yep.
Not the best.
Yep.
I know there's been occasions where lesson plans had to be postponed or assigned at home.
Yep.
And I remember this Monday, actually, in my Spanish class, we had to wait 30 minutes for a presentation to load up just to start the class.
Yep.
So it's like almost a waste of valuable time.
Totally.
And it puts more pressure on the students because we're still expected to complete the assignments of the day so we won't fall behind.
Yep. Yeah, I appreciate that that insight, and I'll say this: that's one of the tragic pieces of it. Certainly, the student experience, wasting your time and the teacher's time. The worry also is, and I remember, technology wasn't as big a deal when I was a teacher, but people would try things from time to time, and if the internet didn't work, I'm just not going to do that anymore. I'm just going to stick with what I know will happen, or what I know will work. And if that's not going to work consistently, I'm just not going to do it. And so it's really up to us to make sure that there's reliable, speedy internet every day so that you don't have that experience. Appreciate you sharing.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Yeah, Member Dugan.
Yeah, sure. So, Dr. Tutwiler, correct me if I heard this wrong. Did you say on January 17th, Verizon installed one of 2 circuits?
Yes.
So is there a date for the second one, or?
You know what? I would say one, but who knows? You know what I mean?
No, I
We
appreciate
thought
that.
we were going to have this last June.
Yeah,
and so
right.
we're really careful not to promise that the other,
Absolutely.
But I will tell you this. We're going from 7 gigabytes to 20.
Okay.
So it's a significant, and I'm told that the consultants that we're working with were like, you guys are going to have no problem once these things are in place. Even with the one, that's a significant increase, but we went the distance. So
Great, thank you.
Really don't want to have that kind of experience happening.
Yeah.
Member Gately.
Any idea when that second circuit is coming?
Are you joking? I'm only saying that, Lorraine, because he just asked me that. I don't know. I don't know. They promise, but we'll believe it when it's there. Mr. McHugh, I don't know if you've heard anything different.
I think they're holding up on another part. They're waiting on another part right now. They were on site this week, 3 days, and they've been back and forth, and now they're missing a part. So we're hoping soon.
Thank you. Yeah, and Member Magnolia, just in terms of the ARPA funding, I think wanted to mention that the broadband access is absolutely one of the categories. There's approved categories for the ARPA spending. Of course, we want to be complementing what we're doing in the Lynn Public Schools, and I think there's some analysis and thinking to do about what that means in our community, the way they've defined some of that, because obviously different communities across the country experience that in different ways. But certainly one of the project areas, and would encourage folks. We've been working with the Lynn City Council on coming up with a process for that, and recently launched a website, lynnarpa.com, for people to keep tabs of have that process, participate in that process of setting the priorities, and there will be a really robust outreach effort and input over the course of the next several months to work our way through those plans for the Lynn ARPA funds. All right. Request to temporarily suspend attendance standard. Dr. Tawala.
Yeah, This evening, I'm seeking the committee's support and approval to suspend a particular piece of our attendance policy. You'll recall 2 years ago, 2.5 years ago, school committee, school administration, principals, teachers, and even students all sort of came together in a sort of organized fashion to create a new attendance policy that I think reflects our values, both high expectations, but then also, an opportunity for students to, turn things around and have a second chance. And while I would say that I really believe in that attendance policy, I'd also say that it was developed at a time very different from where we are right now. And I think one of the things that I've really appreciated and admire about the school committee and administration working in partnership is our ability to make changes and be flexible and understand the times. And right now, you received a memo from me, I believe, last Friday. This one I know you have in there. And I laid out sort of clearly what the policy JH, says about attendance. And then I also laid out for you at the secondary level the significant change in the average daily attendance for middle and high school. It is lower to the tune of 7% at the middle school level and 8% at the high school level. That's significant. And when we compare quarter two that we're almost nearing the end of, and quarter two during the last in-person experience that we had, which was the year before last. It's pretty significant. And, knowing what we do about mental health and where students are, we don't think it's appropriate for scenarios where students have more than 4 unexcused absences for their grades to be automatically a D-. We think they should get the grade that they earned. Because a lot of these absences are anchored in fear. They're anchored, obviously, in illness. They're anchored in, extenuating circumstances. And I think we need to recognize that and allow students the grades that they earned this quarter. And so at the end of this memo, there are 2 asks. I'll read them. Allow schools the flexibility to allow students to receive the actual grade that they earned during quarter two, even if they exceeded 4 unexcused absences. That's the first ask. The second ask, because this policy was in place first quarter, allow students who did not meet the attendance standard for quarter one to receive the grade earned. Whether or not they met the attendance standard during quarter two, meaning the policy says that a student cannot exceed 3 unexcused absences if they did not meet the standard the previous quarter in order to turn those grades from a D- into whatever they actually earned. So I'm asking for those 2 things for this quarter only. We would return to our to the policy for quarter 3. You've received updates from me about the direction of the positive cases. It is trending down rapidly, which we are really thankful for. So we're hopeful that we won't see this kind of attendance issue in quarter 3. But if we do, I might be coming right back before you. But for quarter 2, we think this is an important thing for our middle and high school students.
Make a motion to approve.
I second.
Motion made and seconded. Member Magnolia.
Yeah, can I just ask a quick question about quarter 3, right? I think the pandemic has taught us that none of us can predict the future to any reliability.
Yeah.
Is there wisdom in proactively doing this for quarter 3 for a very specific reason, which is that persistence rate near the end of high school for somebody who sees that they're earning a D just because of, parents keep them home. That's not necessarily in their control if there is an exposure to illness, et cetera. I'm thinking of the students that come to see me thinking they did not earn good grades, right?
Yep.
And I know you can't do this just for students in this specific position, but because of the way you've worded this, it's the grade that they've earned, not knocked down by the attendance policy.
Correct.
And I would think that the goodwill of allowing students for this academic year to get the grade they earned, not looking at the attendance policy, would help with persistence rates. Do you see what I'm saying?
I do.
So there's a motion made and seconded. Whoever put forward the motion could accept a friendly amendment if they're so
Absolutely.
inclined. Okay.
I think it's fair.
I would like to make a friendly amendment to the motion to extend this to quarter 3.
Second.
Second.
Okay. Is there any perspective?
Just say thank you.
Yeah.
I have
That's-
lots of conversations with the
Yeah.
secondary principals, and they have asked and pleaded for us to try and get this through because they see in their buildings the effects of the pandemic and how the kids are having difficulty surviving with their grades. And it's not that the kids aren't trying. There's just a
Yeah.
lot of circumstances that are
Yeah.
getting in
That's
the
right.
way, and
That's right.
they will be thrilled to hear this.
Great.
Great.
Quarter 3, how about quarter 4?
I know it. Go the whole year. Why not?
I would like to revise my friendly amendment to the motion to extend it for the academic year 2021-2022.
I second that.
Okay. I think as a friendly amendment, we can just vote on the amendment, the motion as amended. So roll call, please.
Member Castellanos?
Yes.
Member Capola?
Yes.
Member Dugan?
Yes.
Member Gately?
Yes.
Member Magnolia?
Yes.
Member Pena?
Yes.
Mayor Nicholson?
Yes. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So, next item is vote to approve appoint school committee attorney. Secretary of School Committee, Mary Jules, has a list of the firms. Yeah, if that's, I think, just to give everyone a moment to collect their thoughts and also to put that in front of us, I'll say a couple words about how I imagine us moving forward. Obviously, we are in dire need of a school committee attorney for many reasons, many of the business items of the Lynn Public Schools. And we had talked when we spoke about aiming to move forward this evening, having interviewed all of the candidates who applied and accepted an interview. The best way to be doing that, well, for one, because this is all to be done in regular meeting, that we're doing it in the regular meeting with consultation from our interim legal counsel in the city solicitor's office. And so wanted to give folks an opportunity to share their thoughts and questions to be done clearly in open meeting. And then, once people have had a chance to share their observations, reflections to the extent that they would like, to ask folks to put forward their first choice and to see where that takes us. Obviously, if there are 4 of us who have the same first choice, then that person would be hired or extended an offer. And then if on that first go-around there is not a candidate that receives 4 votes, then we would have another round of voting with either the top 2 or in the event of a tie, more than that, until, and so on and so forth, until we get to a candidate that receives 4 votes. All right, so we can start just by opening them up if anybody wants to start to share their reflections. And yeah, Member Dugan.
Sure. So at this time, could I speak on behalf of who I feel?
Sure.
Okay. So I just want to speak on behalf of Attorney Phelan. With this one, I feel like I need to go with my gut, and my gut is telling me that we need somebody who is there. And according to Attorney Phelan, this will be his one client, Lynn School Department. It is true that he doesn't have, the resume that I think some of the other people may have or some of the other firms may have. But I just, like I said, I feel like, he's going to be there as our attorney. And I think that's really important. His experience on the Lynn School Committee, on the City Council, he understands what the needs of the city are and the landscape of the city. According to his resume and, what he expressed to us, he's had experience with labor law, with Holyoke and Springfield. And I feel like he's, just from listening to him, one of the things that I think is really important is a relationship with our attorney and the trust of our attorney. And I feel like that's what he expressed to us, and that we would be able to do that. And that Dr. Tutwiler would be able to, have a very collegial relationship with him that he could feel comfortable with too. And I think Attorney Phelan also expressed some passion in his interview, which really impressed me. So that's how I feel, and I appreciate everybody listening.
Thank you, Member Dugan. Member Magnolia?
I have a question regarding special education services. Okay, so a number of the firms and individuals said that they did not do special education. In fact, KP Law specifically mentioned that we have currently special ed counsel Katie Meinholt. Is there an issue with hiring a school committee attorney that does not do special ed and retaining special ed counsel Katie Meinholt, or is there a conflict with this? I don't understand how the special ed is separate from or included in the needs of the school committee attorney. So can someone explain that to me, please?
Yeah, Dr. Chector, you want to speak to what we're doing now and how we're imagining that?
Yeah. So since I've been here, so for 7 years, the district has always had a partnership with a different firm or individual who's provided special education support. That individual for us now is Katie Meinholt, and she does an incredible job. She's in a very small firm. I think it's just her and one other attorney. Very accessible, very knowledgeable, and the special education team, they love her. And I think she does incredible work. And so the vast majority, or all of the special ed matters, were handled by by the firm or by Katie more recently. And if there was any matter that came close to something that our previous attorney handled, there would be a partnership and they'd work together on it. But it is a very, specialized area, and you want somebody who, exclusively does that, not a whole bunch of other things. And so whoever's selected would have very little special education work.
Okay. It was one of the interview questions, so that's why I needed to understand why we were asking the question if we also had retained an attorney that was specializing in this. So, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and just to clarify itself, that interview question mentioned other sort of general, right? Yeah. So I think it's helpful to have someone with some facility because you want to know when to call the specialist. But certainly agree with Dr. Tutwiler in terms of that approach.
Can I advocate now, or was my time up with my question?
Please go ahead.
Okay. I would like to advocate for the firm of Miaris and Harrington, which was the lawyers Donna Brewster and Alexandra Rubin that presented to us. I really felt that the incredible depth of expertise that Donna Brewer expressed to us is something that can take the school committee and Lynn Public Schools forward. The amount of training and information that she mentioned she pushes out regularly through newsletters and e-blasts, as well as Attorney Rubin's experience directly with pandemic issues, said something to me about our ability to rely on that expertise for the future of how we build much more resilient schools.
Thank you. Member Magnolia. Member Coppola.
Okay, I think we had some nice groups that came before us, but I also feel as though we have to really pick somebody that does have urban school experience, because it's definitely a little different. And although I know Attorney Phelan is local, hiring somebody with no experience at this is kind of difficult. Some of what I think that we need is not, trainings and such. It's actual, hit the ground and help the superintendent or the committee with issues that come before us. And, some of these may be a better fit for other communities, but not necessarily a fit for us. I personally had liked either Howard Greenspan, or I thought that the Norris, Murray, and Pelican would be a good match, but my preference is somebody who's closer to Lynn, and maybe it's my own preference, because I think to Attorney Myhouse, and it was a good relationship with one individual, and I just thought maybe Greenspan might do that for us. And the other thing is, it doesn't, if we pick somebody and it doesn't appear to be a good fit after an amount of time, there's we can, move on with another process. But we had Attorney Myhouse for like 30 years, I think he was here, and that's a long, long time. So for us, we may be trying to work something out, but I'd like to hear what the superintendent has to say, if he had thought any of them would be a fit that he could work with.
Thank you. Member Capola, Dr. Tutwiler?
Yeah. I think I'll echo what Eric said around collegiality. I can work with anybody. All of the attorneys brought, I thought, expertise, some experience with urban settings. But then I'd also like to channel, Member Capola, what you said about relationships. Because I think about, in my short tenure as superintendent, and the relationship that I had with John Myhouse, there was a daily conversation, especially as the pandemic began to rage, and I needed him to be available, and I couldn't wait until later on in the day, and I needed, if I had questions, I needed him to be available for me right away, and I was kind of expecting an answer or support. And so, the good news is, we live in Massachusetts, not Texas. It's a small state. All of these folks are in Eastern Mass, and, people talk. And these attorneys, many of them are representing districts, superintendents I know. I through the interview, felt the most connection with Attorney Greenspan. And I also, Donna, we're agreeing. This is amazing.
Yeah.
I also liked, this is the Kodak moment right here. Norris, Murray, and Pelican. But I want to be clear. Whoever's selected, I will work with, and we will do well.
So, anyone else have thoughts or questions? Yeah, Member Castellanos.
Where do I start? So we had a very thorough process. I want to thank, first of all, George Markopoulos was instrumental during the summertime. It's been the tragedy that we had to endure with the loss of John definitely impacted a lot of us, not just professionally but personally. This has been a really difficult process, but a very necessary process, seeking counsel. I also want to thank the previous mayor for taking time. I know we all met in the previous year to discuss this need that we're trying to address. Went through, all the candidates, went through the packets. We got to shift through different firms and kind of see what everyone's preferences are. for myself as the chairman of negotiations, I was wearing that lens as we were proceeding with interviews and just doing this process. And I kept on thinking of how can I try to vision myself with each of the candidates and firms to see which one would be, my best fit. And the standout for me was Attorney Phelan for me. His accessibility and based off his skills and years of experience in municipal government, labor relations, and his commitment to us really stood out to me. It was very important in my transition as a school committee member to have Attorney Myhouse at my every phone call, anytime I needed to reach out to him. That was very important to establish. I know they all mentioned relationships and building that knowledge base that we need. And his, that's a lot of those attorneys are skilled. We are in a very difficult conversation. It's a very difficult decision that we all have to make tonight. And I really strongly recommend folks really take a look at Attorney Phelan and what he has to offer and what type of what his commitment. He's not just making a couple priorities for us. It sounds like he's going to be all in, and I think that's very important to note. So,
Member Gately.
I didn't want to select from the last group, so we had another group of applicants, and we reposted. I went around the city and I said, why can't we find someone from Lynn that knows the city charter, that's familiar with our ed laws? And when Tim Phelan decided to apply, he met those criteria. He also had experience on the school committee. He had experience working hand to hand or hand in hand with John Mayos through negotiations. So I think that I would feel comfortable with Tim Phelan as my lawyer for the school committee, and that's my reasoning. So I would like Tim Phelan.
Great. So, I think I will also weigh in. I think these are somewhat difficult conversations because typically interviews do not happen in the public eye with the candidates participating. So I appreciate everyone's willingness to participate in that. I think we're also, to echo, I think what Member Dugan said and Dr. Tower echoed, we're all going to work with whoever the person is, right? Like that's definitely how we work as a committee and in local government, and I think there were some really compelling candidacies here. So I think that's great with a lot of strengths brought to the table. I think for personally, for me, I feel like it's important to have someone in this role that has done this work previously, that has experience representing school committees in urban districts. I think it's a very specific technical area of the law, and I think that there's a lot of folks around the table that can help us bring the different aspects that the terms of the particulars of the community, the relationships, the personality. But what we currently do not have the table is expertise on these specific areas of law that are before us, and then so. For that reason, that was one of what I prioritized in reading the applications and listening to the interviews, and particularly in experience in urban districts, because that tells me that they've had experience on questions that are likely to come up on the issues that we're going to be coming up with. So that was what I was looking for, and I thought that Howard Greenspan had that that had that experience, that he had done this job for urban districts because he's been in that role. I think hearing my colleagues go through this process, one of the things that I think people were really nervous about was accessibility to the attorney, and I think there are some of the larger firms that had the experience that I was looking for in terms of urban experience with the district, but wanting to sort of hear that feedback and think about people that would be able to sort of take the legal experience that they had and expertise they had and be able to relate it in a way. I mean, there's no replacing John Myhouse, right? There's just an impossible task. But for someone to take over that job, because somebody has to do it, right? And thinking about someone who can act in that as an individual that people can feel comfortable building a relationship with, that has that local connection, but that also has experience doing this exact job in districts that are comparable to Lynn. And also, I think I appreciate Member Coppola asking Dr. Tutwiler for his recommendation and thoughts because Dr. Tutwiler is going to be working with him so closely, and I think that's really important. And so that also means a lot to me. So does anyone have any other questions or thoughts, or should we?
Well, I just wanted to add a little
Member Pena, please.
A lot of, we had, we interviewed, we had a, thorough process, and we had a lot of great candidates. Mr. Phelan stuck out with me because he's a Lynn guy, he's local, his accessibility, but also I just want to touch on Greenspan's experience. That, we want someone that's kind of been doing this, so that's where I'm at with this limo. I do like a local guy, someone who's going to be accessible, who's going to be available, at a, drop of a dime. We're facing a lot of issues, we've got negotiations coming up, and those things are important, but it's also important to have someone who's been practicing, having this actual experience, which is very key to what's going on. Thank you for reminding me, Mass is a small state. Accessibility is not, we're living at different times.
5 miles instead of 3 miles away.
But accessibility is key, and those things are very important and key, and that's where I'm at.
Okay.
Just want to touch upon that.
Okay. Other thoughts or questions?
I would just add that I can be persuaded that Greenspan is a good choice for us. I think I had about 4 top people, so it was very hard.
Yeah. Absolutely. Wonderful. Well, that's helpful. If no one has any other comments, then I think we can call a roll and ask people to submit their selection, and then we'll see where that gets us in terms of votes, if that's okay. All right. Roll call, please.
Member Castellanos?
Attorney Timothy Phelan.
Member Coppola?
Howard Greenspan.
Member Dugan?
Attorney Timothy Phelan.
Member Gately?
Attorney Timothy Phelan.
Member Magnolia?
Attorney Howard Greenspan.
Member Pena?
Attorney Greenspan.
Mayor Nicholson?
Attorney Howard Greenspan. All right. So
That's it?
as I counted, 4 votes for Attorney Howard Greenspan, so we will reach out to him and appreciate everyone's help throughout this process. I would echo Member Castellanos in thanking Attorney Markopoulos for his help throughout over the last months, and thank you to all of you for this, for going through this process, and also for the moving with the speed that we did, understanding how important this was to the district that we fill this role. So thank you all so much. And then the last item is the superintendent's report.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a couple of things to share. Typically, with the onset of the new calendar year, we ramp up plans and activities related to preparing for the following school year. The significant piece of this effort is wrapped up in the development of the budget, which, as you know, is underway. Therein reflects deep thought, data analysis, and soliciting input on positions, programs, and resources, all in an effort to serve student need. Plans and activities can also involve updates to curriculum and program expansions. I'm using the space of the report this time to share 3 significant efforts. Last spring, as I shared with you, the Lynn Public Schools was the recipient of a $208,000 grant to support culturally responsive literacy in the district under the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education Growing Literacy Across Massachusetts, or GLEAM initiative. GLEAM grants will support districts in implementing deep and lasting improvements in programming in ELA and /literacy through a multi-tiered system of support. The effort to improve literacy through equitable practice is supported through a partnership with both DESE and our consultants from the Hill for Literacy. In tandem with these consultancies, our charge is to adopt a new core curriculum for our Tier 1 ELA instruction at the elementary level. Presently, a Curriculum Council Adoption Committee is being formed who will support the process of evaluating and selecting new core curriculum. Key stakeholders from each elementary school will be represented on the team, including grade level teachers as well as ESL specialists and special education teachers. We're excited about this opportunity, very excited actually. As the effort progresses, I'll update you via report with plans for a formal presentation to the curriculum subcommittee when we narrow the selection. A similar effort is happening with elementary mathematics, although not in formal partnership with DESE. During the upcoming months, the math curriculum team will establish a leadership team of representatives from curriculum, English learner education, special education, and elementary teachers from across the district. This team will analyze elementary math curriculum materials through a standards-based and culturally responsive teaching lens using a research-based rubric. As part of the selection process, we intend to pilot some of the materials. As we've done historically, we will follow the established adoption procedures approved by the school committee. As is the case for the ELA adoption, we will keep you abreast of our progress. And then finally, last Friday, we submitted a grant application in partnership with North Shore Community College. Our vision is to provide a full-scale, high-impact, immersive early college experience for Lynn High School students, with the expected outcomes for students to graduate from high school having completed a minimum of 34 credits within 4 years. For now, we see this as an exciting chance to provide a robust, immersive early college experience for LPS students and deepen our partnership with North Shore Community College. Much more to come on that.
Thank you, Dr. Tutwiler. There being no further business before the committee,
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
roll call, please.
Member Castellanos?
Yes.
Member Capola?
Yes.
Member Dugan?
Yes.
Member Gately?
Yes.
Member Magnolia?
Yes.
Member Pena?
Yes.
Mayor Nicholson?
Yes. Meeting adjourned. Thank you.
Of course. Be safe.
Public Health Director of the City of Lynn, retroactively effective September 28, 2019. Mr. Smaras, Supervisor, Inspectional Service Department Chief. Michael Donovan recommended her for reappointment based on her job performance in a letter dated September 5, 2019. Former Mayor Thomas M. McGee was prohibited from reappointing Mr. Smaras as a result of a conflict of interest ruling that he sought from the City of Lynn Law Department and the Massachusetts State Ethics Commission. Furthermore, according to the city's law department, there was no provision within the Lynn City Charter to address this situation and to provide for her reappointment until this time. Ms. Maris has continued to serve in her capacity, including, as you know, stepping up to lead during the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic. As such, pursuant to Section 3-9 of the Lynn City Charter, I am respectfully requesting that the council confirm Ms. Desmarais' reappointment at your January 25th, 2022 meeting. Sincerely, Mayor Jared C. Nicholson.
What's the wish of the committee?
Motion to approve.
You have a second? Any discussion? Roll call?
Counselor,
Mr. President.
Okay.
Counselor Field.
Mr. President, after this motion, can we just ask Ms. Desmarais to stand and be recognized for
Absolutely. Yep.
from everyone here for the hard work that she's put in during this pandemic?
Yep, good point. Roll call.
Counselor Alensug?
Yes.
Yes. Counselor Barton?
Yes.
Yes. Counselor Chakutis?
Absolutely, yes.
Yes. Counselor Calucci, absent. Counselor Field?
Yes.
Yes. Counselor Hogan?
Michelle Desmarais.
Yes. Counselor LaPierre?
Michelle Desmarais.
Yes. Counselor Lozey, absent. Counselor Net?
Michelle Desmarais.
Yes. Counselor Stabbed?
Michelle Desmarais.
Yes. Counselor Walsh?
Michelle Desmarais. Michelle, would you come on up for a second? Just say hello.
Thank you very much. Thank you for your kindness and consideration, and to Mayor Nicholson for following through with this. I thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you.
I just want to say that during this time, I don't think anybody who had that job thought they would be doing the things that we have to do today. And I'd have your cell phone number. I'd call you on weekends and nights, and much appreciated. And I know the rest of the councilors feel the same way about it. So thank you again. Thank you. So we have a presentation. Is the mayor's here? I'd like to invite the mayor up to the podium and maybe explain who's coming up to give the presentation to us.
We have the presentation of the ARPA Consultants Capital Strategic Solutions regarding plans for community outreach input over the next several months in order to get feedback on how the ARPA funds should be used. Mayor Nicholson.
Mayor Nicholson.
Thank you, President Walsh. Good evening, councilors. It is my pleasure to introduce this presentation about the plans for the process on the ARPA funds. As we all know, we have a once-in-a-generation opportunity to make some real important investments in the city on some key issues. And just as important as those investments are going to be the process as to how we make those decisions, and doing it in a transparent, inclusive way so that we bring the best of our community's thinking to make these decisions to tackle the most important of our problems within the parameters of the opportunity that has been given to us by the ARPA funding. And to help us with that process, we have had the work of our financial team, led by CFO Mike Bertino, and the consultants that we've hired to lead us through this process based on experience they've had in other communities, leveraging other financing opportunities, along with our compliance officer that we've hired in-house with Don Castle. So we are excited to share what is a forward-looking presentation about what we plan to be doing over the course of the next several months to make the most of this opportunity, in close consultation with all of you on the council, with the folks that work with us in the city, and really importantly with the whole community, and creating a really open process that allows everyone to weigh in so that we get to those decisions that we can all feel good about. And I think we're very lucky to have the leadership of Council President Walsh to help us through this process, as well as Councilor Field, who has stepped up in that liaison role for the ARPA opportunity. So we're excited to work with all of you, I think, and we're excited to share the process tonight and to answer any questions. So the consulting is going to be represented by Jen here, who will join us for their firm CSS. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much for having us here tonight. It was 2 tough acts to follow. First the cheerleaders, and then a health director that brought you through a pandemic. So I'll do my best, but I don't know. The bar is pretty high. I'll give a little background while we're waiting for the presentation to come up. So my name is Jennifer Thompson. I'm one of the partners at Capital Strategic Solutions. And we're a local company. We're based out of Marlborough, Massachusetts. We're all former, can you hear me okay on this? Okay, just making sure with the mask and the mic. We're all former municipal employees that now work in the consulting field. We have a lot of background, me personally, I have a lot of background in federal grants management, and the members of our team have a lot of experience with public outreach for municipalities. So it's kind of a nice mix for the Opera funding. So we come in and assist you on the financial side with making sure you're maximizing your reimbursements. But we also come in and help you with that outreach that the mayor was just talking about, making sure that you have an opportunity to reach out to your citizens and gather that input that you want on what projects should be undertaken through the Opera funding. I'll give it a minute to get us up.
All right, can we get a click here?
We need your help, Larry.
I'm just so glad it's Larry and not me that's responsible for that.
Me too.
We could be here all night if I was trying to get it up.
It's not working.
Which of these PCs? Anybody know?
Laptop.
While he's getting that going, I'll just give a little bit of background on what we'll go over. So I'll give a brief introduction, which I kind of already did, to our firm. And then I'll do an overview of the Opera funding, which I think the counselors have already heard. I think you had a presentation back in December from Mr. Castle, but we'll just do a quick overview, especially for folks that, are here or watching from home that may not be as familiar with the Opera funding. So we'll do a quick overview in terms of what it is, what it can be used for, what it can't be used for. And that did change a little bit, I think, from your last presentation. I think in December you were operating under what was called the interim final rule, and now the final rule has been published by the Treasury Department, so there have been some changes. And then we'll talk about that outreach plan and in the final few slides.
There we go. There it is. I've had this stuff happen. It's pretty routine. You just work through it.
We do have the presentation in front of us.
I was going to say, I can just
We do have the presentation.
go with it if you want. Okay, want me to just go ahead?
Yeah,
We'll catch up.
I think we have the ones in front of us. We can just go off those, I think. Yeah.
Who has the slide, the presentation, the deck?
It should be, I think it's already loaded up on there, but, yeah. I think it was a PDF, if that helps at all. But I can start if you want, and then
I think we should move just,
Yeah.
yep. Thank
So I'll start, and then what we'll also do is we'll put the presentation up on the website, so for folks that are watching can have access to it. We'll put the slides up. So I just gave you some background on Capital Strategic Solutions. We are a certified woman-owned business out of Massachusetts. We're based in Marlborough. We're all former municipal employees, and we provide specialized grant writing and administration, public outreach, crisis communication and website, and social media outreach as well. So the American Rescue Plan was signed into law on March 11th, 2021. Through that, they created the Coronavirus Local Fiscal Recovery Fund, which is abbreviated CLFRF. They love acronyms at the federal government level. So it's intended to provide support to state, local, and tribal governments in responding to COVID-19 and efforts to contain COVID-19. Lynn, as you know, is eligible to receive just over $75 million in local ARPA funding. That's on top of funding that you'll receive through the state of Massachusetts, through their ARPA funding, as well as some of the earmarks that have been specifically designated for Lynn. And cities and towns like Lynn have until December 31st, 2024 to spend those funds. So there are 4 general uses that you're allowed to use the funding for. You can use it to respond, this is a pretty obvious one, to the public health emergency, and also to those negative economic impacts that all of us saw in our communities. It can include assistance to households, small businesses, nonprofits, and it can include aid to those impacted industries that we saw hit the hardest, like tourism, travel, and hospitality. The second category is you can use it to provide pay to workers that provided essential work during the pandemic.
Another one?
Also, the third category is the City of Lynn can use it to replace revenue that you lost as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic. And then the final category is municipalities can use it to make improvements in your infrastructure, water, sewer, and broadband specifically. So there's some pretty broad uses that you can use your ARPA funding, but there are 4 specific uses that are designated in the legislation that you cannot use your ARPA funding for. The first is you cannot use it to deposit funds into a pension fund. You can't use it to pay off your debt as a municipality. And you can't pay a settlement or a legal judgment against the city. And then finally, you can't use it to replenish your financial reserves, so you couldn't take that money and put it into a stabilization fund. So the first category, and probably the most obvious, is the public health and economic impact projects. I think you already talked about these earlier in your meeting and perhaps later in your evening. 2 examples of those. So some pretty obvious examples are vaccination efforts, monitoring for COVID-19, contact tracing, medical supplies, PPE, prevention and mitigation in your public facilities, payroll and benefits for your public safety and public health staff that are working on pandemic-related activities, any improvements to your public health, and then economic assistance to those populations that we talked about in the previous slides that have demonstrated an economic hardship due to the pandemic. The next category is revenue loss. So in the interim final rule, I think when you received your presentation the first time, there was a calculation that the Treasury Department came up with for municipalities to use in order to calculate how much revenue it's estimated that you lost as a city due to the pandemic. When the final rule came out, they added a new provision to make it easier for cities and towns, and that municipalities now have the option, you can still use the formula, or you can calculate your revenue loss at $10 million per municipality. So if the City of Lynn wanted to, you could allocate the full $10 million to that particular category. So the expenses in that category are the most flexible. That's really your general services, general government services category. And it's a lot of the things that you would normally fund through your budget. So it does give you, as leaders, the most flexibility in terms of funds. So some examples of projects that can be funded through government services. Maintenance of your buildings, maintenance of your infrastructure, including road work, building of schools and town facilities and work in those buildings, modernization of cybersecurity, health services, environmental remediation, school and educational services, police, fire, public safety, and any other traditional service that you would normally fund through your budget, with a few exceptions. The exceptions are those 4 non-allowable uses that we just talked about. Stabilization funds, pension, legal agreements, those type of things. But otherwise, you do have a lot of flexibility with that particular category. The other category, as I mentioned, are investments in your infrastructure. So I know in Lynn you have a water and sewer agency, but that's allowable as well if you want to have conversations in terms of work on your water and sewer projects. Those same eligibility that applies for those projects are ones that would apply under the state revolving fund. So your clean drinking water and wastewater projects would be covered. Stormwater work can also be covered if there's a water quality benefit. And then the final category is broadband. So broadband that meet or exceeds certain download capabilities is allowed. And the focus should really be on underserved or unserved areas of York City. So those are really the uses of ARPA and in general terms what you can use it for. We do have links up on the website for folks that would like some additional information or really want to dig into the Treasury rules. But I'll move on to the outreach and engagement piece. So as the mayor mentioned, we really want to focus on providing a mechanism for the citizens of Lynn to provide the mayor and his team and the councilors with input on what projects move forward. So you'll see in the slide in front of you that we talk a lot about setting the scope of engagement and really framing what type of projects and how we can provide that input to folks. Excuse me for 1 second while I take these off. It's a little harder to read on this slide. So our overall objectives are allowing the community to weigh in, focus our feedback on those programmatic areas. So rather than just trying to get individual project ideas, to really tune in on what type of projects and what programmatic areas the citizens of Lynn would like to see move forward. We want to make sure that we're articulating how the city is spending its money and how the decisions are made on what projects move forward. And as the mayor mentioned, we want to make sure we're doing that in the most open and transparent way that we can. The ongoing engagement should continue throughout the entire project, and the entire project selection process should be open and transparent and forthcoming throughout all of our meetings. On the next slide, you'll see the ARPA outreach that's already been performed. So Mr. Don Castle, who's your in-house compliance expert for ARPA, has done a tremendous amount of work the last few months reaching out to folks to explain to them what ARPA is, and you'll see a big long list in front of you of all the different agencies that he's already reached out to, which is wonderful. So our next steps will be to work with him and the team here to kind of take it to that next level and really reach out and meet with all of your neighborhood groups, your business groups, all of the stakeholders in your community to talk to them about ARPA, give a general overview like we just did, and to solicit their input on the type of projects that they'd like to see move forward. If you probably have seen in the last few days, there's a brand new website, lynnarpa.com, that was launched. There's a great deal of information on there to start, but that will get more robust as we move forward. So the Lynn ARPA website will include all of the project information. It'll include a calendar for all of the upcoming meetings related to ARPA. And it'll give folks a chance to submit online ideas as well. We'll have surveys up on there for folks to provide information. It's available in 4 languages. And like I said, it will continue to get more built out and more robust as we move forward with this process. You've probably already seen some use of social media on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram to try to start pushing out that information. And you'll continue to see that more and more in the next few weeks and months going forward. So you'll see on the slides, we just talk a little bit about the different types of outreach and how we'll monitor the numbers for you in terms of who you're reaching and how many folks that you're reaching through your different various avenues like social media and web. We're planning on doing a bunch of virtual meetings at first with just given the numbers right now in terms of your neighborhood and business meetings. And then the hope is that late winter and spring, when the numbers hopefully start to come down, that then we can solicit more in-person community meetings with members of the community. I think for us, we're working with the mayor's office to make sure that we're capturing all of those groups that we want to capture and reach out to and get to as many folks within the community as we can. So I think it would be incredibly helpful if members of the council also weighed in terms of particular neighborhood groups or business groups that you feel should be deliberately reached out to solicit input. I think, for all of us, the most important thing is reaching and maximizing the outreach for you to try to get to as many people as we can to solicit their input about this, the funding. That really is the intent of the legislation. The intent is to gather as much possible information as we can from the public. We'll be working with Lynn Community Television to also provide some updates on ARPA and provide folks within the city with information. And again, I talked about those in-person meetings and the neighborhood meetings. In your presentation, you'll see a timeline. That's a timeline of when we expect to launch all of these different outreach activities that we spoke about. The mayor's office and the city council will get monthly updates and quarterly updates on those outreach activities. And then in the final slide, you'll see some recommended priority projects. Those are some of the projects that you've already started talking about. And that's really just meant to start to guide the conversation for folks. We'll start to highlight those as initiatives and priorities that the city has already identified. And then that list will continue to grow as we continue the outreach activities. So I'm here to answer any questions that you might have. I know it was a little difficult to get through that without actually seeing the slides up on the screen, but for folks that are watching at home, we'll make sure this is loaded up on the website so that they can see all the details.
Any questions from the council? Councilor Lapierre?
I just had a brief thank you for the presentation. I really appreciate
Thanks.
All the work that was put into it. If you refer back to the timeline,
Yes.
I don't know if it's simply a typo, but some of these dates reflect 2021.
Probably. It's probably 2022.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because I don't want to miss something if it has already happened or if it will, like, for example, scheduling educational forum.
Yeah, those will all be 2022. Sorry about that.
Will that be in just a few days?
It will be. So we actually wanted to wait until,
By Zoom?
yeah, so we'll start scheduling them tomorrow.
Okay.
We kind of deliberately waited and didn't schedule those last week because we wanted to get the input from the council first to make
Yeah.
sure that we're reaching out to the groups that you would like us to reach out to.
Okay, so that's
Okay?
2022.
Yes, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions from the council? Nobody? All right, I want to thank you for coming. I think one thing that I'd like to ask is that there's a large elderly population in the city that doesn't always have access to the internet and, Twitter and all these things that everybody's doing now. So
Yeah.
I would just say that as you reach out, we need to find ways to make sure we're reaching into those populations that don't have access to computers and Zoom and things like that, so.
Thank you. Yeah, I think that's incredibly important. We're hoping that those in-person meetings will be a little bit easier and, we can visit with seniors that, like you said, don't have access. So hopefully the numbers do come down and folks feel comfortable coming. That's the hard part right now too. So even, we're all comfortable in here with our masks. Some seniors still uncomfortable coming out, even if they're vaccinated, but hopefully it's going to change in the next few months and we'll get to do the in-person meetings, which would be great.
Understandable. Councilor Hogan?
Yes, I just want to say Donald Castle did a great job informing us all. That's why we don't have a lot of questions, because we've been through this, and I've been through probably 3 or 4 of these presentations.
Yeah.
So I just want to give Donnie Castle, saying he's been doing a good job since he started.
He's done a great job. Thank you.
He's been great to work with for us too, and the entire team here in the city of Lynn has been wonderful to work with.
Any other questions, comments, for anybody? Well, thank you for coming up. Appreciate you having me here tonight. I want to thank Mayor Nicholson, who's still here, for the introduction for you. He's been, actively helping us and keeping us in the loop with all this, and much appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Next on the agenda, we have a discussion about the senior center. Mike Bertino, you want to come up and brief us about that?
Thank you, Councilor Walsh. Mike Bertino, City of Lynn CFO. Over the past year and a half, we've put out 3 different RFPs requesting space for a home for our senior center. The latest RFP revealed 2 results. I reviewed both proposals, and at this time, I want to strongly recommend that we don't follow up on either proposal, which would require us to rent space over a 10-year lease, and the other option was to rent sub-level space that needed probably a 3 or 4 month build-out. So at this time, I'm recommending that we turn down both of those proposals, and I think later in the night, we can talk about the proposal that's before you that is much more financially beneficial for the city and also provides the seniors with a long-term home option.
Okay. Jim Lamanna, could you come up to the podium just for 1 second? Jim, are we looking tonight for a vote to reject the bids at the council level for those senior centers?
The CFO has made a recommendation that the 2 bids be rejected at this time. My understanding, financial reasons, that it's not in the city's best interest to enter into a long-term 10-year lease on the terms that were contained in the 2 responses to the RFP. Correct me if that's correct.
Okay. Any questions from the council, or does anyone have any? Is there a motion?
Motion to deny.
Second. Roll call.
Counsel Alanson?
Yes.
Yes. Counsel Barton?
Yes.
Yes. Counsel Chakutis? Yes. Yes. Counsel Calucci, absent. Counsel Field?
Yes.
Yes. Counsel Hogan?
Yes.
Counsel LaPierre?
Yes.
Yes. Counsel Lozey, absent. Counsel Net?
Yes.
Yes. Counsel Stabbard?
Yes.
Yes. Counsel Walsh?
Yes. All right. So we have a hearing, bond hearings.
Okay, the first one is $14,150,991 regarding school remodeling.
You know, you up to the podium, maybe give us a little explanation on what that is. Thank you.
Thank you. Again, Mike Bertino, City CFO. That is for our participation in the MSBA Accelerated Program for windows and repairs to the Lynn Tech School. The $14 million is the amount of the authorization, but after we get reimbursement from the MSBA, you know, we're talking that our obligation will be under $4 million. But according to bond counsel, we have to authorize the whole amount. The rest of it will come back in the form of a grant through the MSBA.
Okay. Thank you. Any questions, comments? Get a motion?
Motion to approve.
Council Stabbard.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mike, so at the end, what was the amount that we'll ultimately be paying? 4 million? 4 million?
Yeah, it should be just under 4 million. They have, as we speak today, they were updating our estimates because the estimate we got was over the summer, came in at 14.1 million, but because of rising construction costs and things of that nature, they adjusted it, but our share should be less than 4 million.
And what would the timeline be on that 10 million coming back? Is that like trickle in, or?
The way the system works with the MSBA now is if we submit an invoice for $1 million, it takes about 30 days and they'll send us back our 80%. So we won't have to utilize any of the additional authorization from the $4 million mark to the 14. It's just we're required to authorize the whole amount. So the difference between what we authorize and what we issue will be 10 million. I'll only issue 4 million, and once the project's completed, we'll rescind the other 10. And
So we won't be incurring that debt?
exactly.
All right, great, thank you.
Any other? Councilor Barton.
Mike, could you come back to the podium, please?
Absolutely.
I'm going to ask you the same question I asked you the other day. At this time, what is Sean Cronin's feelings about us floating bonds?
Sean doesn't comment on the bond at this time. He's on the committee that we go to next, and that committee is it's called the MFOB, and in order for the city of Lynn to borrow, we have to get on their agenda and present to them. Sean just opines on everything we do. This is still historically low interest rates. It's our commitment to improving the infrastructure, and whenever somebody offers you 80 cents on the dollar in the grant, it's something that you want to do. So we're getting $14 million worth of work, and it's costing us less than $4 million. So, Sean he just opines on ours, but this is just a good, solid financial decision for the city with the interest rates still low. They still haven't been raised yet. They'll be raised several times during the year, so we're trying to get all these projects in under, before March, before the rates start creeping up.
So you're pretty sure that Sean is not going to be coming after us for doing this?
No, it's this body's decision. We've talked about these as well as the other issues. Everybody seems to be in, 100% agreement. They're good financial decisions. They're borrowing for our future at historically low rates. It's essentially what most of us call a no-brainer. We're enhancing an asset the city already owns. And there's a pretty rigorous process you go through to qualify for this. And we've been, a participant at least once a season, and call the season would be the whole calendar year. We did a lot of work at the the Hood School. We did a lot of work at the Annex. Now we're doing work at the Lynn Tech. We're also going to probably be doing work at Shoemaker School as well. So these are situations where whatever money you spend, you get the true 80% back. And that's what we're looking to get back, the whole 80% of our grant.
I agree. These are all good things, but I just wanted to make sure that we were doing the right thing when we do this. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other comments, questions? The wish of the council?
Motion to approve.
We have a motion to approve. We have a second?
Second.
Roll call?
Counselor Alanson?
Yes.
Yes. Counselor Barton?
Yes.
Yes. Counselor Chakutis?
Yes.
Yes. Counselor Calucci absent. Counselor Field?
Yes.
Yes. Counselor Hogan?
Yes.
Yes. Counselor LaPierre?
Yes.
Counselor Lozey absent. Counselor Net?
Yes.
Yes. Counselor Stabbard?
Yes.
Yes. Counselor Walsh?
Yes. Next bond hearing?
Second bond is $1,500,000 regarding State Street property.
Mr. Patino, want to come up, give us an explanation on that?
Again, Mike Bertino, City CFO. Sorry, I know there's people at home that want to know that, who I am. It's hard to tell with the mask on. Again, this is an opportunity. Again, the city has been looking for additional space. We have some leases that we're currently involved in that are expiring, and this is an opportunity for us to borrow to purchase a piece of building in a small piece of property downtown. Again, this would be 25 or 30-year debt, depending upon the amortization that we select. But this is something that will not only pay for itself with the rental income that it currently brings in, but it'll also pay for itself with the savings and rental income that we're going to save. It's a downtown location. As soon as we own the building, we can finalize different plans we have to occupy that. But again, we have gone out 3 times over the last 2 years looking for space, and this is space that just happened to be put up for sale, and we're going to try to exercise our right to acquire that property.
Thank you. Any questions? Mr. LaPierre.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, Mike. I was wondering how confident you are in the asking price of that, and how this would look in terms of a potential sale. I think the property is owned by Eastern Bank, is that right? Are we talking about the Century?
Yes.
Century Bank? How much are we offering again?
We don't offer. To acquire property, what we have to do is get an appraisal for the property, and whatever the appraisal comes in, that's what we are allowed to pay. Now, this is a situation where we don't have to relocate any tenants, because there's only one tenant on the top floor. The bank is exiting that building. So,
Is that like a professional client, like a law office?
yes, exactly. That's exactly right. So we would we would presumably honor their lease for the term of their lease. We would also have many uses for the other 2 floors that are available. It's everybody's right to go back and challenge that appraisal, and there's always a possibility. But we don't have the ability in the beginning of this process to change that based on a professional appraisal.
But my question is, will we be in competition with other potential bidders? Is this
No.
an open market?
No, this would be what I would call a friendly taking. It's a property for sale. It would be a friendly taking, so to speak.
And when do you, then my final question is potential timeline of this acquisition?
I think as quickly as we can move on things. I know the building has been empty. We're voting on the authorization tonight. As quickly as we can move, we can move.
Okay, thank you.
Councilor Field.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mike, is the 1.5 million that is the ask here, is that the city assessed value right now, or is seeing that no appraisal's been done to date, correct?
Yeah, actually, we did have an appraisal done.
You did, okay.
So the appraisal come back at 1.5, which is almost the same number as the assessed value. The assessed value has just changed a couple weeks ago, but it's very close to being the assessed value.
Okay. And I don't know if this is a question for you or Attorney Lamont, or the 1.5, that's our request for an assessment. Does the current property owner have a right to a second assessment through litigation, through the courts, or do they have their right, or that it can increase from this 1.5 if it's assessed by someone else?
Correct. If the property owner is satisfied with the city's appraisal, and the city has done an appraisal on this property, they're free to rely on prior appraisals that have been done, and they could engage the services of appraisals immediately to try to get a snapshot in time, and they would be able to go to Superior Court or Land Court and challenge the city's value. At that point, it wouldn't be challenging the city's ability to take the property. It would be what is the fair market value of the property. And as Mr. Bettino had mentioned, there is a tenant in the property with a long-term lease that would have an effect. This is probably not a building you would knock down and construct something else. But any property owner always has that legal right under our Massachusetts Constitution and the United States Constitution to challenge the fair market value.
And if that happens, what's your timeline? What's your best guess as a timeline going through the court system for that process? Because our leases, like Mr. Bertino said, our leases are expiring, so I'm assuming that you're looking to move into that building as soon as possible. If the current property owner does challenge that in court, what's your best guess on a timeline as far as transitioning from expiring lease to that property?
This council, we're going to take any piece of property by eminent domain that become the owner immediately upon filing the council vote. The money exchange, the challenge of the money, the statute of limitations is 3 years. The court case could last a year or two. That may play out over a 4 or 5 year period, but as far as ownership goes, the ownership wouldn't be dependent upon what happens and what the fair market value is. We would be writing a check for a pro tanto within 30 days of a council vote for eminent domain. That's our obligation, but the property owner, the property owner always has a right to challenge a municipality, a governmental entity's establishment of a value.
Thank you for clarifying that. Thank you. No questions.
Any other questions? Councilor Staben?
Thank you. I did have an initial question about how confident Mike was in that 1.5, but I guess we would have to wait and see how the courts would react if they so choose to go that route.
That's correct.
Thank you.
All right, what is the wish of the council?
Motion to approve.
Second. Roll call.
Counselor Alanson?
Yes.
Yes. Counselor Barton?
Yes.
Yes, Counsel Chakutis?
Yes.
Yes, Counsel Calucci absent, Counsel Field?
Yes.
Yes, Counsel Hogan?
Yes.
Yes, Counsel LaPierre?
Yes.
Yes, Counsel Lozey absent, Counsel Net?
Yes.
Yes, Counsel Staben?
Yes.
Yes, Counsel Walsh?
Yes. Next bond hearing.
Next bond is the $3,100,000 regarding Friend Street property.
Mike, would you like to come up, CFO? Give us-
Thank you again, City CFO Mike Bertino. This would also be to acquire a piece of property for the senior center. In this circumstance, we haven't had an appraisal done yet, but when I spoke to the principals at the current place, they did have an appraisal, so it's based on that amount, which appears to be in line, but we would get our own appraisal, but they've had 2 appraisals done, and they're at that amount. So that's why I'm comfortable at that amount for this property. And again, the same situation happened. Not only is the city looking for more space, the school has put out RFPs. So this is an opportunity with the location to fulfill more than one departmental needs for the city. So this is why we ask that you move forward with this vote.
Okay. Any questions from the council? Councilor Jacutis?
I have a few questions for you, Mike. Who determines when we get the building? I know we need something for our seniors. Who determines who gets the rest of the floors to rent?
I mean, I think that would be something we could work with the mayor's office and the council. That's totally our option. I just know that there's been an overwhelming need for space, but I'm sure we could set up a committee and talk through it and find out what's in the best interest of both the council and the mayor's office.
All right, yeah, because I was just curious, because I have been in the building and walked through it, and when we were looking to maybe lease it, we wanted the first floor and the second floor, but we knew we couldn't afford it. So I'm hoping now, if the city's going to have the building, if the senior center could have the first floor and the second floor and put part of the health department in there where they need those services, something to think about.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think the first step is acquiring a building. The second step is working out what's the best use for the city and for, all its constituents. So I'm sure everyone will be open to that. We're just looking to make good, solid financial decisions on the city's behalf and know our own destiny.
Well, because I feel if we're investing this kind of money in a senior center, let's do it right the first time. Let's not say, oh, let's rent this second floor to someone else. Let's take the extra space for the seniors. We need it. There's a deck on the second floor with a little patio. They could use that, but I figure if we're going to spend this type of money, let's do it right the first time. Let's not do it and say, oh, we'll get more space, or right now we need this space for somebody else. I need the space for the seniors. We haven't had a senior center in over 2 years. So how much longer is this going to take now that we're not doing the RFPs? How much longer is this going to be now for my seniors to have a senior center?
Quite frankly, the RFP had April 1st. So I believe that based on everything I see, we should be able to beat that date. If it's up to us moving ahead. The same thing with the other property. I believe it's vacant. So there's one small office being rented out. So the ball's in our court. One RFP we had said possibly April 1st. Now, that all depends how the build-out's going to go. I mean, I've been told that it doesn't need much of a build-out. So I don't think we're delaying it by doing this. I think we're just improving the overall picture for this department in all aspects, budgetary aspects, some place to call a permanent home, control of a key piece of land, So I think, the rest of it's upon us to move forward with it.
Okay, as long as we can move forward and finally get these seniors a place they can call home, I'd really appreciate it.
Councilor Net?
Thank you, Mr. President. Mike, so if I understand correctly, so we don't know how much the building costs yet, right?
We don't. We have a really good idea. And there's been 2 appraisals done on the property that came in at that authorization amount. So again, assuming the third one comes in at that, that's our obligation, is to offer that amount.
Yes. If we approve that 3.1 million for that building tonight, and it comes up, the building will cost more or less, so what are we going to do? Are we going to come back and do another part, or what?
Generally, anytime you enter into these types of transactions, you would want to make sure you had reserves set aside just in case, and we do have reserves. And we would, upon the transfer of the title, we would reserve a reasonable amount of money just, for just in case.
I see. Okay, so but we still need to come back, right, to approve a new amount, or just keep the way it is?
No, I think that amount is fine. If we have to do anything beyond that, we have a grant available to us, and we have additional city reserves.
Okay.
Thank you, Councilor. I just want to caution, this is, vote tonight is to lock us into a good interest rate. It will require further votes down the line to take the property by eminent domain, and it may very well be that's the recommendation of the law department to go into executive session to go through the pros and cons and the strengths and weaknesses of any eminent domain case. So there will be further votes down the line, and everything will be laid out to you as much as it can to be done in public, and to the extent that it could threaten potential litigation, there's executive session options that protects municipalities for open dialogue.
So we
I want to
vote
caution
just
the council on that point.
We vote just to lock the rate, that's all tonight, is that right? Is it? So we vote tonight just to lock the rate, that's what the offer right now? Or?
This evening's vote is simply just to authorize the chief financial officer to apply for a bond in the amount of $3.1 million. The actual vote for a taking, that may be a February meeting, it may be a March meeting, and we'll have more information, I believe, at that time.
This is just for a bond to appropriate the money, more of a place marker to make sure that we have the money bonded so that we're not, if they increase the interest rates, we're not paying more later on for it, right?
That's correct, Mr. President.
Thank
All
you.
right, thank you, Mr. President. Thank you.
Councilor Stafford, do you have a question?
I'm good, thank you.
You're good? Councilor Field?
Right, thank you. Mike, quick question. The 3.1, those are the, you said there are the 2 appraised values. Is there an amount that the city has the property assessed at?
The assessment is right about 3 million. It changed last week. So again, the assessments are pretty much spot on. And this building is 95% exempt. So only 5% of this building is on our tax rolls right now.
Okay. And just so we're not getting ahead of ourselves, or I'm getting ahead of myself. If it's used for a senior center, as far as I don't know too much about the building, is it compliant already for the seniors? Or is there going to be a build-out? And if there is a build-out requirement for that particular building, is the $1 million ARPA money that's already been allotted to the city for a senior center from the state level, not from the city, but from the state ARPA money, is that able to be used towards that?
Yes.
Okay. It's not able to be used towards this amount?
It's very flexible, but the idea would be to use our money, lock in the rate, and then if it needed any type of build-out, we could use those funds for the build-out. That's, can be decided later. I'm sure it'll need some, but from what I'm understanding, it's almost move-in ready.
Thank you.
Councilor Hogan.
I just want to say